It's Friday, April 26th, 2024. Let's start off with our promotional segment, which I know everybody loves. That's right. And I've all right.
You know, yeah. I have to tell you this. You're making a substantial argument for why you should not have that soundboard.
You make a good point, sir. You make a good point. I can't disagree with that. So yeah, I probably shouldn't have one. I probably shouldn't for this exact reason. I know. Yeah. Listen, it's my soundboard, so I get to do what I want, right, folks? Yes. Thank you. If anything, thank you. That's enough. If anything, I'm making a point for why I should have one because those were very seamless transitions. So you can kiss my ass. As far as our promotions go, very simple. SupportOurShow.com. Now that I have the proper domain in place, that's where you can go. All of our support options are there. And should I mention this early on before there's enough there. We also have a TikTok channel now where I am putting the fives only. There's no way on normal shows.
Aren't they about to ban TikTok?
Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Is there an endless loop? Is there an endless loop of you dancing while the
No. There's no video. Well, the video is animation of the show logo with like a thing in the background, and it's literally just animating the words so that Do they have like a chat GP thing for animation? They probably do, but for as simple, because you have to remember TikToks are very short. They're only the fives are 5 minutes long. So all I do, I'll just let everybody in on the secret if you want to know how simple this is, because it's not like I have any real skill. You create a template, so it's always the same background, animated. I have it set for the exact amount of time, which is 5 minutes. So it rotates. The background is raised that rotate. I don't know if you can I don't know if you can view them without having an account, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, you just search for those on Nightmare, you'll find it. And then I have a little thing because Premiere Pro will create captions for accessibility, and so I tell it, okay, create captions of everything I said. I have to do some minor corrections here and there. It always spells out daily 5, whereas I like it to be the number, so I have to capitalize daily and change it to the number 5. Whatever, that's no problem. And then the rest of it is just, making sure there aren't any glaring.
Oh, and it's only 5 minutes, so it's not.
It's I don't do the Friday shows. There's no way to get that condensed, and I wouldn't even know how. Forget it. And I don't care. But I was told, hey, those short shows would probably do very well on TikTok because it's for short attention spans. Like, is there any way you can get it down to a minute? I'm like, no. I barely keep it at 5 minutes.
A 1 minute show, Jesus! I wonder if you can do that.
That would take so much more work than I believe it is worth. Now suddenly,
yeah.
No, I mean I could do it, but I feel like I already see so much junk that is short attention span to the detriment of the viewer.
Yes.
I don't really want to contribute to that since I already do them in 5 minutes, and TikTok has made their thing. It used to be shorter. Now it's up to 10 minutes. So 5 minutes is it's already the time I do. I know I can hit 5 minutes every time because I already do it. So I'm not altering how I do those shows. I'm simply reformatting it for a phone. So now it's vertical. It's just a vertical image with animation. And then the words are there, which I have no problem with because, again, That's good for accessibility. If somebody literally doesn't want to listen to me, which I completely understand, they could just read it and get the same information. It's not any different. So we just have to check for grammar mistakes, which it does. Premiere has some difficulty in some of the way that I talk. Sometimes it thinks I'm saying things, or it's trying to correct for me because it thinks maybe I'm stuttering or something.
you said it wrong.
Well, if I kind of gap what I'm saying, so if I go, it doesn't know how to interpret that quite, that literal, it sort of tries to put something there. That's easy, though. I just delete it and fix it. And like I said, just like Fallout, I did a review of Fallout that was spoiler-free, and it was not capitalizing Fallout. Well, that's just a find word, replace word, easy stuff. So it doesn't take much work, and then I put that up there, and that's it. So we'll see. It's there. If you care to hear it in that format, and I know some people do live in that thing, so that's fine. If you found it annoying to have to only listen to it in a podcast app, and you're already in TikTok in a big way, you can get all the daily fives here. You're not going to get the full shows. There's just no way to make that work. I'm not going to go through and try to snippet the show in 5 minutes. Number one, it does not serve the format of the show correctly. And I don't know that it really actually accurately... what do we ever say in 5 minutes? Nothing.
You should just take all the cursing. You should just take all the cursing, put it into one 5-minute segment, and have that be the trailer for the show.
Ironically... You say this. It was suggested to me I should just take you laughing and put it into a 5-minute stream and just keep posting different versions of that over and over. Well, you have to remember, stupid content is successful now. It is. Stupid.
Are you telling me that my laugh is stupid?
No, what I'm saying is I actually can envision. I have thought about this a little bit, and I might actually do it because I could see a Friday show. It's nothing but, let's say, 3 minutes of you laughing on a loop.
Listen, if you want a real loop of me laughing, you just gotta go to our games stream, because there's a few times there, man, where like I can't contain. What did we do? What did we do when we were laughing so hard that I blew my mic? I think it was Baldur's Gate. It was when we pushed the tubby zombie wizard guy.
Yeah, when you
I yelled.
Balthazar.
Yes, I yelled. Yeah.
Yeah, you yelled when Balthazar went over the edge. So,
yeah, but I laugh often in the so yes. That's good to laugh, man. Laughing is good for you.
Well, and honestly, I actually could see it that if all I did was post that for the Friday episode, I bet you it would take off. It would get featured somehow.
Laughter is infectious.
Yeah, there's that too. Oh, you can continue as guest. So I will. Oh, jeez, God, TikTok is terrible. I hate it.
It is terrible. Yes.
It is terrible, but whatever. Oh, jeez, verify. I have to move this little thing because I'm going to link it. Why not? In case anybody cares, just if they want to see it, because it isn't zero effort. I won't pretend that I didn't put any effort, but it's minimal.
You did something.
There are 1, 2,
You're
3, 4,
sharing
5.
it with the class. There
6 episodes. 6 episodes so far. And here's something really stupid.
Yes.
You can only post things up to 10 days ahead. I don't understand that. 10 days?
Honestly, because they probably want to keep things current.
I guess. It's stupid. The whole thing is dumb. Okay, TikTok, it's capitalized with 2 T's. All right, there it is.
Listen, I also like longer articles.
So
not just, like Cliff Note articles that you're getting a lot of lately. Who started doing that? Was it Vice? No. Who was it? There was somebody who was like, I can't remember what site it was. It was like the master of like the super short article. They would condense everything into like 5 sentences. Was it Vice?
Oh, it may have been. I don't remember.
Was it Buzzkill? Was it Buzzkill that had that?
I think it's BuzzFeed.
It was BuzzFeed. There you go.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
So.
Yes.
Yes.
I guess that's what people want.
Well, I have something interesting for you. I have a few little things for you. That's all today.
Okay.
Did you read about the 1984 special edition audiobook they're doing?
I saw something about it and I bookmarked it, but I haven't read it because I was interested, but I haven't seen the details on it.
I may listen to this because Andrew Garfield is doing the voice of the lead.
Okay.
Right? Tom Hardy is the voice of Big Brother.
Who's doing it? Is it Audible or somebody else?
It's Audible. It's Audible.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom Hardy is doing the voice of Big Brother. Right? And then what's his name? Oh god, do you know him? Andrew Scott. Do you know Andrew Scott?
Oh yes,
he played
Andrew Scott.
Yeah, Moriarty in the Sherlock
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
Yes.
So he's playing the guy who tortures the lead towards the end, right? Whose name I can't remember right now. And then
it's got a very good review. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean it's got a nice cast. I read the description of what they did, and I was like, you know what? It's like not that 1984 is incredibly light material, but Jesus, this has got some production value to it.
Wow, A-list. Yeah, look at that, premiering April. Oh, so it premiered April 4th. Okay, so this has been out for a little bit. Oh yeah, look at this. Yeah.
I figured I would bring that to your attention.
Oh, what's her face is in it too?
Who?
Oh, Nausea, the vampire. She's one of the voices.
Oh, is she?
Natasha Demetriou. I know her name just from the titles of
I wonder who she's doing.
Mrs. Parsons. I don't know. I don't have that book memorized in the way that I know who Mrs. Parsons is, but I know her name when I see it. So
yeah, that's funny.
Well,
yes,
that's
I'm very curious to hear it now. Like I didn't even know about it, and then when I was reading about it, I was like, "Oh, this has become something I want to listen to."
That's great. No, it's very There's there's a sample. I guess I could play.
Yeah, don't crash your system now.
No, it won't crash the system. But I don't know if it'll get some kind of strike, so I'll just leave it off. But you can. I linked to the Audible article on it. So
I'm excited about that. That's gonna be some good listening. You know, the fact that 1984 is still as
75th anniversary. Wow,
it's still as prevalent a message.
Oh,
you know,
that's one of those books that ain't never gonna be unrelevant to something. I mean, you know,
it'll yeah.
That's when it'll lose relevance, when they say it doesn't exist, right? When it actually fulfills its statement entirely.
So that and Fahrenheit 451, right?
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, those two. I mean, those two are back to back. You should read those. If you haven't read 1984 or Fahrenheit 451, you should, because they are a powerful message. Animal Farm. Yeah, Animal Farm is a little harder for me. I liked Animal Farm, but like that one gets heavily into the.
Your buddy Tom King, I think, just is doing an adaptation of that in comics. Did you see that?
Is he really?
I believe so, because I follow him on Blue Sky, and I'm pretty sure he's been posting. Let's see. Animal Pound series announcement from Boom Studios. Yep. George Orwell's Animal Farm, writer Tom King, along with Peter Gross.
The weird thing about that is that he shouldn't have to do much of that. Like,
you know what? No. Well, no, you're right. He's probably just smoothing it. But man, they've got an all-star, like the artist and the colorist. Man, some of these pages are beautiful. Man.
Oh, good. Well, I'll have to see it when it gets collected.
Yeah. Look at that. Huh. Yeah, I only know about it because I had seen he posted about it on Blue Sky. Interesting. Yeah.
Blue Sky is your Twitter.
It is. Yes.
Replacement, right?
Yeah. Updated version of Animal Farm for 21st century America. Oh, well.
Yeah, and that might be hit or miss. Now, if anyone was going to do this,
it's interesting. I'm curious.
I like that Tom King is doing this, because he has a lot of, but it is hit or miss, because in updating it, Animal Farm is good because it's a very sort of general message, right? An important one, but it works in as a metaphor. If you make it too specific, then it can start to fall apart.
Well, let's see if here's something where he's talking about what he did. So let's see what he says. Oh man, this is also very depressing because there's sad animals in cages, so this will be tough to read. Follows a group of caged animals as they organize an uprising within their pound. Oh god, this is going to be very depressing. I don't think.
Oh no! Oh, so it's not a farm. It's not a farm anymore.
No,
she's changing it.
So yeah, pound as in the dog pound.
A dog
so
pound.
Farm,
yeah, no, you're out.
Okay.
No, you're out.
Yep,
you're
I'm
out,
done.
man.
Yep.
I'll read it and let you know.
Oh, yeah. He said he's incorporating stuff about animals specifically too. Yeah, I can't read this.
No.
Yeah.
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 As is, you know what? When I was watching the Fallout show and they shot the dog, I already knew that you told me the dog was okay.
Oh yeah.
But when they shot the dog, my wife turned to me.
He stabs the dog.
He stabs him. Yeah,
he stabs him.
My wife turned to me when we were watching it, and she was like, "Joe can't watch this, can he?" And I'm like, no, it's okay. The dog is fine.
Well, and see, here's the thing, right? The trailer shows the dog with him later, so I knew.
So you knew, yeah.
And see, this is another thing too. That this is one of the things we haven't gotten to yet. But one of the things that I really find clever about Fallout is some of the stuff that's, and this is good storytelling. You'll appreciate, you know what I mean. The good visual storytelling is when Lucy stim packs herself and instantly recovers from a grievous wound.
Yes.
That tells me anybody can recover if there's a stim pack. So when that dog got stabbed, I knew there was going to be a stim pack nearby. I didn't know what the methodology would be. I didn't realize it was going to be directly tied to the ghoul's background as far as his love of dogs. And boy, is that a huge point, man, that they really... There's a lot of stuff I like about Fallout. But yeah, so when that happened, I was like, I know that dog's going to be all right. It's fine. So I'm just going to not try to react too much to the fact that I heard the cry of a wounded animal. I'll just let it go. And, so, so I'm reading here. I'm just seeing if he says anything.
No, I mean, that alone right there means, yes, he's changed it. So now I'm more curious.
Yeah.
He's changed it
the
to
artist,
modernize
the artist said, well, it was easy for me because there's not that many definitive visuals of Animal Farm except for what's-his-face. He doesn't mention him, but I know who he's talking about. Who's the guy who did the Fear and Loathing art? Oh, God.
Oh, that guy.
Steinman,
oh,
I think?
Man. Yeah, his art was vicious for that.
Yeah, well, it was great. I mean, you want to talk about, that's one of the few perfect artists to illustrate an Orwell book of that type. I mean, exceptional. Yeah. So.
Yeah, book illustrations.
I'm curious.
Book illustrations are tough. Because when you have a comic is all visual with story.
Right.
But a book is all words, and sometimes when you throw in visuals, like as a kid, it goes back to like my childhood. So when I started reading Dragonlance when I was a kid, I remember the only visual I had was the covers. You know what I mean? And when you first start reading the book, you don't know you don't know anyone who's supposed to be on that cover. But they made those covers very specifically so that every cover kind of had like a few people from the main group of the book, right? And those visuals, they first off, they were very well done. These weren't like bad Bane covers where it's like, some sort of like ridiculous Boris Vallejo, like, dime store type thing. They had some really nice D&D artists do the covers for the Dragonlance books. Some of them, the core ones. So when you see the characters on those covers, they stick with you because they're really well done, and they weren't like oversexed, and they weren't they were done like honestly. You know what I mean? Like it was honestly good art, and those visuals stayed with me through my youth, and to this day. Like they changed the covers at one point. Don't you hate when they change good covers to update them and they change it with bad art?
Or now adapted into a movie and it's a picture of the movie star. It's like,
yeah, I know. So they updated the covers, and when they updated the covers, they were fucking awful. Yeah. The art was just was nowhere near as good as the originals. Right. So and that's because the original covers were tied to D&D. You know what I mean? So like you had those, that realm of classic D&D artists doing it. But yeah, the covers and the illustrations therein can make a big deal. I tend to prefer to not have illustrations in my book unless they're somewhat abstract, like when I'm reading a book, because sure. I want my own material to fill my my story, my visual story, and sometimes when you get artists doing the illustrations, especially when they have artists who haven't actually read the book, don't you hate that?
Yeah. Well, the thing that was interesting about specifically what you're talking about with like artwork and like Dragonlance is a good example, but I watched, it was a while ago, so I don't remember exactly what the artist name, but they were talking about Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And there's a specific artist.
Those guys. Yeah.
Well, there was
Frau,
one.
Isn't it Frau?
I don't remember. But
there's two guys who helped do all the Peter Jackson.
But prior to that,
concepts.
there was one guy who was primarily known as the Lord of the from the original books, who was known in the 70s or 80s.
His vision of
Alan Hill or something. I'm getting it wrong.
His vision of Gandalf was like the vision of Gandalf.
Yes. And so these guys were talking about, how do you do new versions, new illustrations? I don't know if it was for the movie or not. I think this was well after the movies came out, but they were talking about, because they, of course, after the movies, they re-released new editions, blah, blah, blah. Everybody wanted to do their own thing. And so they were talking to these two people who had completely diametrically opposed views. One of them said, I am grateful that all that art exists because it gives me an idea of kind of the general box to work in so that I don't go way off track and create something that people will reject. And the other guy said, nope, I wish I didn't know about that artwork at all because now I have to make sure I don't just replicate it. So the two of them had these opposite views of this, like you're saying, Dragonlance was established in your head from that art.
Yeah.
And these two guys had opposite views of it.
But also because I was young. Now that I've gotten older, I discount covers completely. Sure. Like I just could look at them and go, whatever, I'll just read the book. Yeah. So like that's why for myself, like my own covers, I want my own covers to be a little bit abstract.
Yeah.
Because it's like you don't know necessarily what these people are going to look for you. You have changed how characters have looked completely to suit your vision of the character in a book.
I think the thing that most bugged me when it happened was when they changed all the Stephen King covers. At one point, they did all these 90s. Oh, yeah. At one point, they
systemize them or something.
Yeah, they all looked related. They had kind of a theme to them. The artwork was fine. Don't get me wrong. The art and some of it was actually quite beautiful. I remember it was around when the Regulators came out because that was the one I think that they really that version of the Regulators because that book had not existed before, and that's kind of when they were standardizing. But if you go back and look at and that Regulators cover is really nice. I really like it. And Desperation, those were the two. But all the books then got revamped.
The David Drake books that I like, which is the Lieutenant Leary Commanding. It's basically the I think they call they're basically like the Space Naval Command books that he did, which is like 16 of them, I think. They were all done by Bain, and they all have the most atrocious fucking covers possible. Like it just. And the thing is, at this point, Bain covers BAEN. They published a lot of great science fiction, fun science fiction, but their covers were terrible, and they were legendarily terrible. So to this day, whenever I don't even know if they're still in print, but whenever I find like used Bain copies of books I like, I'm always like, oh god, this cover, it's so awful. Yeah. And what's amusing is that so the Leary books went the Bain ones are out of print, and some other company bought up the rights to release them, and they did these like very ominous sort of sci-fi covers that had again nothing to do with the book. right and they're kind of this extreme where it's like this is the 70s 80s bad science fiction cover art, and this is the 90s 2000s cover art that's much darker, and like you can see the influences of other things on it. But it's hard to visualize, which actually leads me into the thing I wanted to talk to you about.
I was just looking at Stephen King's It. There's a great example of, boy, did they ruin what was a great cover.
Wasn't that just the
original? Well, there's two
balloon,
originals.
Wasn't it?
No, well, no. The very, very original is a balloon, and there's a sewer and eyes, which is not my favorite one. But the one that I think is the best one is the one where it's just a street with the a grate and a little boat and this little clawed hand coming out. It's very simple.
Oh, I've seen that one, yeah.
Yeah, and now for a while then it was the Tim Curry Pennywise, which don't get me wrong, that's a terrifying character. And now, of course, it's the movie It, where it's like a kid standing with a red balloon and scary clown man, and it's stupid looking. So, anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you.
No, absolutely. You cannot derail me because we're still headed in the direction of this. I wanted to share this with you because I think it's very interesting.
Sure.
So they're starting to research seriously people with vivid imaginations, right?
Sure.
And there's a term for it actually. It's called hyperphantasia, right?
Yeah.
And all human beings are on. You're gonna love this word. You're all on the spectrum.
Hey.
Yep. We're all on the spectrum, and you can either be at one end and have hyperphantasia, or you can be at the other end. What was the other term for it? I think it was like it's not hypophantasia, but I think it was like
is spectrum now just the word for everything?
Well, a lot of things are a spectrum. Okay. That's just what it is. Because
I just feel like that's now like that's the NFT or crypto of anything now.
It's honestly, it used to be the bell curve, right? Which is really what it is. Yeah, the bell curve is what it used to be.
Bell curve and spectrum are the same thing?
They are, in the sense that when you are looking at the averages, right, of where people fall on anything. So you pick anything. Gender identity, ability to play basketball. Ability to eat 100 hot dogs in an hour.
I do not have that ability.
Everybody falls somewhere on the bell curve. And the bell curve looks the way it does because most people will be somewhere toward the average. Okay. And at the ends of the bell curve, which is, which gives you that nice bell shape, are the extremes, the people who are terrible at it, the people who are really great at it. A spectrum is basically people who are different types of people across, a medium, so it's like with vivid imagination, there's going to be a lot of people who just have average imaginations. They are the bell curve. Then at the ends, you have people who have hyperphantasia, and then you have people who have hypophantasia, which I think is the term for when you have like almost no imagination, right? The article, I've read the article on, it popped up in The Guardian, and then I started looking and trying to find other stuff about it. But there's apparently been a lot of attention to it because they're starting to understand, they're starting to try to understand how this affects other aspects of psychology and mental illness and stress, because they're saying that essentially 1 in 30 people has hyperphantasia, right? Now, what was weird for me is that when they started, there's a test you can take, by the way, that is a series of questions about basically.
Is this test online somewhere?
No, well, no, it has to be. Oh. Yeah, it has. Essentially, what it
has to be administered.
It has to be administered because they ask you to imagine something, and then they try to get details about the thing you've imagined, and it's based on the level of detail that you can apply, because. Literally, this is you making it all up, but it's a test of how good you are at making it all up. Do you know what I mean? So a good liar could also score very high on hyperphantasia. So the idea was they were saying is that you have people who can visualize things, people who see things clearly. And now it's weird for me. I don't think that I have hyperphantasia, but if I'm somewhere on this bell curve, I'm close to hyperphantasia because I can. See rooms in my mind. I can move furniture around in the room in my mind. I remember, a great example of hyperphantasia. The other day I was talking to my wife about how I was writing my book. And when I was writing, there was a scene that I was not prepared for where a character did something that I wasn't expecting. It didn't feel like I was creating it. It felt like I was discovering it. And I could see them in this room talking. And I could see it, and I was like, whoa, I didn't expect it to go there. And it was almost like it was out of my control. It was like it was almost like it was writing itself, right? That is a kind of hyperphantasia, right? I can also see maps in my mind of places, but not maps like I'm looking at a map. Like I can actually see almost like a Google map in my head where I can zoom in and zoom out to figure out where I am, right? That's a type of that is an element of hyperphantasia. I mean, there's lots of elements because you're dealing with imagination, but the idea is that you can visualize things to the point of reality that you can see it almost realistically in your head. Vivid dreams are an aspect of this, but that's kind of more an uncontrollable aspect of this. But it's actually having the ability to see things, to just full on see things in your head. And to have control of that. And they were talking about how in this article, they were talking about William Blake, that William Blake, when he used to paint people, he used to tell people that he could see them in his mind, to the point of which that when he lost his kind of creative edge for that, he would almost describe it as the model got up and walked away. Now, William Blake was a bit crazy, but, needless to say, if you look at any of his art and his poetry, creative as fuck. I mean, I love his art, but it's weird. But yes, they say that William Blake, sounds like the type of person who would have had, I don't want to say suffered. I almost said suffered from hyperphantasia.
Well, I mean, you could,
but it's basically, people who are just, and it's not ultra rare. It's 1 in 30. Right, so that you could actually know a lot of people who have hyperphantasia, especially art schools. Sure. It's probably a whole crowd full of people with hyperphantasia. But it's interesting to me because I've told this many times that growing up, I have always figured everybody was functioning on the same apparatus as me, and it took time for me to realize that no, we don't all think alike. Oh no, we don't believe the same things. Oh no, we don't have the same mental capacities as each other. We can't visualize things the same way. And, you're always wondering, like, well, what do other people think like? Because at the end of the day, psychologically, you want to understand how other people think. I mean, that's true empathy right there, is to try to fully comprehend somebody else's thought process. And so, like, my wife doesn't have imagination the way I do. She reads, and she's got a kind of a movie in her mind and stuff like that, but she can't see places the way I do. She can't move things. I mean, like, I can literally move furniture around in my mind and be within like an inch of correctness when it comes to putting like one thing over here and like rearranging all the furniture. Like, I'm pretty damn close in my head. And especially if it's a place that I've been to a lot, I can still walk. I mean, good or bad, I can still walk through the halls of my high school in my mind, even though it was like 20 years ago, more than that now. When I meditate, I have this weird thing that happens to me sometimes, because the chair I meditate in used to be in the back living room of my house in Vermont. So sometimes when I'm meditating, I actually catch myself imagining that I'm still there. And in my mind, I get up and I walk through my house, and it's all just right there. And honestly, just talking about it, I can see my house in my head, and I can see, but it's this fascinating thing to realize, oh, you're not alone. There's a lot of people like this. 1 in 30. So it's like, I like this idea that, oh, there's other people out there, and there's people who have it like way more powerful than you, hopefully. And now they're beginning to try to understand it and understand how hyperphantasia can affect other things. Like, if you have schizophrenia, right? Does hyperphantasia make that so much worse?
Well, and that's why I said, it could be.
Yeah.
When you said what were you going to say, tortured by or whatever, that's why I'm like, well, it might be.
And
it could be.
It is actually, your brain does function differently, because they have people who they tested for hyperphantasia, and then they put them in MRI scans and started watching their brain and the way it processes information, and it does process information differently. Different things are literally going on in your brain to make these things happen. So it says a lot. I mean, we're always learning more about how human brains think and how consciousness happens and how we see things, but it's fascinating. I kind of want to sit down and find a good professional study on this. This was an article, so it was just kind of like a cliff notes of what the research that's been going on, because I would love to explore it more. But it is a neat idea that they're actually putting a name to this, and they're beginning to understand it. Granted, I hate to say this, but the hyperphantasists, is that what you'd call it? Hyperphantasists in plural? Those with hyperphantasia would be the hyperphantasists.
Yeah. Do they say?
Or no, hyperphantasists?
No, I don't like that one so much.
It's but either way, those with hyperphantasia. The downside of it is, if you ever got into a Big Brother situation, those with hyperphantasia would be one of the first crowd that would get eliminated, because you don't want free thinkers with the ability to fully conceptualize something in their heads. We were talking about that show, The 3-Body Problem, and you were like, I don't understand how these people could keep all this stuff in their heads and blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, you know what? It sounds like you could, somebody with hyperphantasia could. They could put a machine together in their head if they were the type, that saw things that way. And what's funny is that, like, my kids don't. My son might. We haven't talked about it enough, but I know that my daughter doesn't. Because I still have old deathmatch maps floating around in my head. They sneak up on me every now and then when I'll be, especially like when I'm walking around a building, and I'll be like, this is like a deathmatch map from Doom or Quake or something like that. They still float around there, because that's when I memorize those maps. I memorize them 3-dimensionally, so they're just these floating 3-dimensional structures in my head, and they're still in there. But it's amusing, because my daughter doesn't. Talking to her about how she memorizes maps in games, she memorizes them as, like, literally as road maps, as flat, like a flat piece of paper that she's trying to visualize in her head. And I'm kind of, and what's interesting is that hyperphantasia is more common in youth. So as people get older, a lot of people, on average, a lot of people lose their hyperphantasia. So it becomes more rare as you get older. So it was really fascinating. It made me think, of you and I and all the artistic people that we've encountered in our lives.
The irony being, I don't think I have this.
Really, you don't?
I can't. You were talking about how you can mentally view something as if you were there.
Yeah.
I don't have that. If I try to visualize like my high school, I see parts of it, but I can't like close my eyes and then literally walk down the hall and see the doors and look left and right. I see pieces.
Can you do that with any place that was important to you?
Not in that way, but what I do have, which I don't know, this is probably not this.
There's a lot of different types of hyperphantasia.
Well, there is something. I'm not saying I don't have, but I don't have it like you do. I can't recreate with solidarity
listen,
a memory.
I don't have it like you do. I can't fucking draw to save my life. I can create abstract patterns and stuff like that really well.
Yeah, but no, your specific reference to I can think of a place and walk down the hall in my mind of it.
Yeah.
With very, very high detail fidelity.
To be clear, also, remember we were having that conversation a while ago about how I can remember like what everybody was wearing. Yeah. That's another part of this. I can't. Yeah, like I remembered the fabric content of my wife's pants from some memory from like a decade ago, and she was like, "Why do you remember that?" And I was like, "I don't know. It was a detail."
But I will see a certain color or a combination of colors or hear certain sounds or smell things, and I will have a full body reaction that is completely linked to 20 years ago.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, is that you...
Yeah, so
remember, we're dealing with imagination here. Imagination is raw, explosive creativity. It doesn't have to be any one thing.
And I have a thing where I think of something and the idea locks in my head right away. I've got it top
and
to
when
bottom
you draw,
when you
draw, do you see it in your head?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I do see it exactly in my head, but the trick is then to make it look like that, and I almost never can do that. But in my head, some images are fully formed.
Yeah, and like for me,
some of them are.
My problem is I'm in a room with my characters, and I'm trying to tell you what's going on as it happens around me.
The Burbank Kung Fu Club shirt that I did, that image, I had that as soon as I thought of it.
I thought of it in the
exact image that it was, where the guy's kicking Hitler. Like that was in my head. And I knew that's exactly how it looked in my head, was that kick, the guy flying backwards and going, oh, and I had it all. And then it was just a trick of trying to find reference images for that, which was not easy. So
yeah, and that's the thing is that in some cases, if you've got, there's people with hyperphantasia where they don't need reference images, but they've got the reference images in their head.
if I had the level of anatomy command that really great artists do, I wouldn't have needed that, but I do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that in extreme cases, you have these people who don't need models because they just.
Oh yeah. That's like photorealism, but for anatomy.
Yeah, and the thing is like there's people we knew in college in art school who could draw from reality really well, but they had no imagination for the abstract, and that's what I mean by this. When you're talking about hyperphantasia, you're talking about all like once let's get into the bell curve here, right? So we're at the end of the bell curve. We're in the crowd of people who would be considered to have a level of hyperphantasia, right? Now, because you're dealing with imagination and creativity, therein everybody could be completely fucking different. It doesn't mean that you don't have it. It just means that it's imagination. It's raw fucking like mental birth. So it's like it's going to be all sorts of things. So there's people who are better with the abstract. There's people who can memorize, like with me, like 3D places and things like that. There's people who memorize, who know how to play with color. There's people who, can have visual models. I mean, I have movies in my head. Movies. And the funny part for me is I don't remember books as literature. I remember books as movies in my head. Long-going movies with the people there and how, and I visualize how they look. And it kind of goes back to my writing with the whole idea that like I'm there watching, you know what I mean? Like it's, so yeah, I thought it was neat that they're doing research on this, and that they may, be interesting if there was such a thing as a hyperphantasia drug, right? Do you think you'd be curious, or you think you'd be scared, or you'd be, worried?
If it was something, it would depend on what the general response to it was. There's always the fear of the bad.
A drug. Well, no, not like acid. This is a drug that stimulates. This is my vision of it. A drug that stimulates the parts of the brain that are most active in those with hyperphantasia, thus creating a limited time hyperphantasia-like state of creativity.
Well, you didn't let me finish.
Go ahead.
So, not as an acid, but the problem with my imagination is I have severe, horrifying imagery all the time.
Yes, and that's
what I was going to say. Is my fear of the bad trip is it would amplify the things where I worry about an electrical short and my wife and my dog burn to death in the house and I find their bodies.
And
that's what I would see.
And that's what when I say, those who suffer from hyperphantasia, that's the flip side of it, is that when I envision something bad, I don't just talk about it, I see it. The same way that you see the full situation, I see it. And we've talked about this before, but if something is real enough, at what point does it? You're having a reaction to something that is very real. How real does it have to be for your reaction to actually matter? For there to be trauma? If you have a dream that is traumatic enough, is that just like experiencing it in reality?
I would say.
So it's that is the downside of hyperphantasia, the idea that you can see the good and you can see the bad, and
so when you ask that question, probably not. I probably wouldn't.
You'd be worried.
I would be too concerned.
Yeah, you'd have to be in like a pure upbeat mode to endure that.
Well, I almost think okay. So I will say the only way I could see that I would try to use it is, let's say that I was offered some very high price commission for a piece of work.
Oh, you wanted to see if you
and
could,
I had the idea or parts of it, and I was like, well, if I can sketch it during the 2 hours this thing is active or whatever, then I can get it out of my head.
And I think that would become so addictive too, wouldn't it, for certain people? Especially people who are hypo.
Well, of course. I mean, this is the problem with any drug, is it can become addictive. Even a non-addictive drugs become addictive if they provide something you need.
Yeah, dude, you're addicted to have that level of creativity. Did you ever see that movie Limitless? About the drug?
Exactly. Yeah, with Chris Cooper? No.
Chris
Cooper. What's that guy's name? Chris...
I can't remember now.
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper. There you go. Bradley Cooper.
I know I had the Cooper.
So, and what's so cool about that movie is the idea that you have this drug that makes you incredible. Well, no, you don't ever want to be off of it because you like being incredible. It feels good to be there. Listen, creativity feels great. It's the downside of creativity that sucks. But if you can have creativity when you want it and then have it wear off and then go back to being like, I'm just going to go to bed at night and not think about shit. Whoa, that's...
There would be an interesting element to that because there are... I actually just did this. I went 3 days in the last week and I said, I am not going to try to be creative at all these 3 days because it's putting pressure on me. So I was just, because there are people who are like, I have to draw every day. I'm like, I got to be careful with that because
I used to write.
I think
I used to write every day. I used to have there's a book I had called The Writer's Book of Days, which gives you prompts. Yeah. And it was I would write every day and I could write whatever I wanted. I could write nonfiction. I could write fiction. I could write whatever I wanted. Just like a page in response to this one idea. And I did that for a few years. And you know what? Sometimes it's a lot of fun. And sometimes it's kind of sad.
Well, the thing that I would worry about is if I couldn't draw one day, would I suddenly become very hard on myself? So I try to take these breaks because I think, it's also good for you to take a little break sometimes and just let your brain stretch and breathe a bit to not feel like you have to force every idea out. So... I don't know whether a drug for creativity would really grip me that way or whether I would be able to say, nah, you know what, it's Tuesday and I'm just going to watch stupid YouTube videos today, so I don't care about being creative.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that...
I don't know.
I think that we're creative a lot of the time, even when we don't think we are. And when I...
Well, but what you're talking about is enhancing that.
Yeah,
so
that's
but pushing it way out.
But you're saying the whole thing about being worried about it, or not pushing it. You shouldn't always push yourself with creativity. I know that for me, recently, I have tried to carve out 2 days a week that are just 2 hours of writing time because I don't have a lot of time to do it, and I do have this book that I actually very much enjoy being in the world of. So it's these 2 hours, and when I sit down, I always sit down and I'm like, I got nothing. And then I'm like, okay, I'll start how I always start, which is I'll go back anywhere from 2 pages to a chapter and just start revising. And by the time I get to the end of that stuff I've written, my brain goes, okay, I think I know where this is going. And then, and sometimes sometimes I'm like, I think I know where this is going. And sometimes it's on its way without me. And I'm just trying to get it down as fast as I can. There are times when my characters are talking and the only thing I can write is the dialogue because there's so much going on. And then I have to go back and I have to go to that place again and watch them and write everything, all the movements down. It's like, but you are correct. I can see how hyperphantasia can be good or bad because the other night I was in bed. My insomnia is it's pretty diminished at this point. I've done a lot of things to kind of get it under control, which is really nice. But I still have I was
going to say because we're playing games much later than we were for a while, so I figured, you must have it better under control.
Oh, I do.
For a while
I have it. No, I have it a lot. My issue with my insomnia is that I cannot be massively stimulated late at night. So
I didn't want to mention anything in case it was one of those things where don't pay attention to it.
No, not at all. No. So every like 2-3 weeks I have a bad night, right? And mostly a bad night in the fact that my body goes, no, I'm not going to sleep, and I'm kind of like, come on, man. I'm like, no, I'm good, and then it can last anywhere from like 3 to 5 hours of just not sleeping, right? But by and large, I can get to sleep at night. And I sleep pretty well. Actually, so I get about, during the school week for my kids, I get about 5 hours of sleep a night, which I guess is somebody referred to that as a high functioning insomniac. And I was like, ooh, I like that. I was like, that's a good, it's kind of like a functional alcoholic. I'm a functional insomniac. But when I do have a bad night and I'm up, the thing about insomnia that sucks is that you're alone. You're up. Everyone's asleep. You're usually trying not to make a lot of noise. And there's different, some insomniacs get up and go do things, and then some try and stay. I try to stay in bed as much as I can in the hopes that I can convince my body to fuck off. Because the problem is if I get up and I start stimulating myself, my brain's like, okay, we're good. And like I've read a novel in a night when I've had bad insomnia because my brain's just like, nah, we'll just keep going. We're good. Fuck sleep. We don't need to go away. But the other night I had a kind of a 3-hour bout of my body going, fuck you, we're staying up. And I don't know, I was thinking about something. I think I was thinking about like fitness accidents, because I had built this piece of equipment and I was sitting there thinking to myself, if this thing ever gave out, this thing would just come crashing in my head. And then I had this horrible imagery of like if my kids come into my gym sometimes, my gym space when I'm doing stuff, and if I don't notice them, I had this terrible image of like one of my weights hitting my kids, and I was just like, I was horrified because I could visually see it in my head, and it made me very sad. And like that is the negative side of having such strong visuals. It's that like if you can imagine it, then you see it, and if you see it, it's traumatizing because you are seeing, you're seeing death and destruction, and the key thing is to not let it spiral you, to not let it get control of you. You always have to try and, control the beast that is your imagination, because it can turn into conspiracy theory and madness, which is why the thing you were saying about having a couple nights of like, a couple days of being like, I'm not going to be creative. I'm just going to fucking chill. That's a good idea. It's good to have chill. Part of the reason I love lifting weights is because you can't think about anything but not dropping those weights on your head. It's sure. You're pushing against the weight of gravity and creation, and it's very focusing. So, but yeah, I do like that there's a name for it now, hyperphantasia. I want to read more about this study, and I want to see what the full-on level of this exam is, like what it's supposed to entail. But there's a name for it now. Having too much imagination.
Hyper is too much and hypo is none, right?
Yeah,
I have that right?
I don't think they call it a they had another phrase for it, but hypo.
Well, no, but I understand.
But hypo usually means absence of. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was. Hyper is you have a ton. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
So, I want to make sure I had it correct when I did the link. That's all.
Yeah, and that's
show notes correct.
And that's pretty much all I got for you.
That's it. That concludes your
my weird shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So how many episodes of The Fallout are you?
I am 2. This is actually very funny because I watched the first 2 episodes, and my wife was not a fan, but she was kind of okay with it, but kind of not. And I told Joe, and Joe goes, "Yeah, so that's a soft no, right?" And I laughed, right, because I didn't think it was a soft no. And then yes, after like a couple days, she was like, "You know what? I don't really want to watch Fallout. I'm good. You can watch it when you have time." And it's like, but fucker, I don't have any time to watch this. And I think really what it is that we started watching the new True Detective with Jodie Foster, and I think she likes that so much more. She's like, "No, I just want to watch this." Because we're still we try to hop through shows, but like kind of cycle back, like anything from 2 to 3. And I don't think she wanted Fallout in that rotation. She was happy. We were still watching West Wing, and like I love Taskmaster, and there's new Taskmasters coming out. So like we're kind of moving through Taskmaster.
Wait, so where are you in West Wing?
Oh, we're towards the end of season 4 or 3. Shit.
Oh, you're already at 4.
No,
okay.
3. We're
3.
Okay. Almost to the end of season 3. So he's just done the State of the Union, and there was the whole episode about cancer, but they wanted to have cancer in the speech, but they didn't.
Wait. So did Ron Silver already show up?
Oh yes. And I totally,
Did I tell you?
I totally understand why that's your favorite character, because there's a thing in there where he's talking about white salmon.
I sometimes have trouble talking to people who don't race sailboats.
Yes. Well, there's a thing where he's talking about the white salmon and selling stuff, and then
have you ever seen white salmon?
And then after
that guy could sell anything.
Yeah, and as he's walking away, he says to himself, "I could sell anything." Yeah. No, he's very good.
Yeah. The sailboats thing. If you think I'm not going to talk about something when it costs us nothing, you are quite simply out of your mind.
Yeah,
the way he talks
he's good.
Is so beautifully lyrical. I could listen to him read a phone.
Yeah, and like what's funny is that Ron Silver and Andy Garcia look so much alike.
Yeah,
they could be brothers.
But they don't sound alike.
No, they don't, but they could be brothers. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And Ron Silver is also one of those actors that's kind of gone to the wayside now. We're like, you don't hear about him. He's older now, right?
Well, he's dead. That's why. Oh, he's dead.
He passed away?
He died a while ago. Oh, yeah. Shit. He died of, I believe, lung cancer.
No.
Yeah, 2009. Yeah, 2009.
Oh, I'm so bummed out.
Yeah,
now.
I know.
Because
that's why you're not hearing from him.
Because there's so many movies from my youth that Ron Silver pops up in. Did you ever see the one?
Yeah, esophageal cancer, longtime smoker.
Did you ever see the one with Jamie Lee Curtis? Where I think it's called Is it Blue Streak? Where he's like
Blue Streak.
Where he's the bad guy.
It. Yep.
That
I couldn't remember the name until you said it. Blue Steel.
Blue Steel. There you go. That is a heavy movie.
Silver Streak is what? Gene Wilder and somebody else's Silver Streak. That's why I'm mixing them up. That's why when you said Blue Streak, I'm like, Streak, isn't it?
Yeah, hold on. When you type in Blue Steel, if you want to look this up, you have to type in Blue Steel Jamie Lee Curtis, or else you'll get what's his name? You'll get the look, the modeling look from what's his name's character from the Meet the Parents. What is it called?
Oh, Meet the Fockers.
Yeah, Meet the Yeah, you're gonna get you're gonna get the look.
Well, put Blue Steel 1990.
Yeah, Blue Steel, Jamie Lee Curtis, 1989.
Yes. Clancy Brown too. I always forget about that.
And Ron Silver is the bad guy in that, and he is quite frightening. Oh, Tom Sizemore's in that. I totally forgot that. He's in the very beginning. Jesus, yeah. Man, I'm gonna have to watch this again. Jamie Lee Curtis, man, she was fucking gorgeous.
Ron Silver, also the bad guy in Time Cop.
Oh yeah,
which is one of the best parts of Time Cop is just to hear Ron Silver saying evil things. So that's why I like Ron Silver. He has a really cool way of talking, so I really just like hearing him talk.
No, and he's great in West Wing when he shows up.
Oh, and he's gonna come back, so be ready.
Oh, well.
He will show up, but not working for them anymore, which makes it even better.
I'm actually curious now to his filmography.
Oh man, he was in a lot of stuff.
He was in two. I know. I'm looking at it to the like the '80s heyday.
Oh, there's a ton in there. Yeah, he did a bunch in the '80s to mid '90s. He was all over the place.
Yeah. Oh, Romancing the Stone. He was in Romancing the Stone.
That's right. I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, so
he's a No God, You Devil. I remember that because that's I like those movies. I know they're weird, but I like them.
With Bob Hope, not Bob Hope.
No,
Who was his name?
George
Burns.
Oh, what's that guy? George Burns.
Yeah,
George
Burns.
Like,
Another one that is like lost to time. And it's so sad.
Yeah.
There's these older actors that you grew up with, and like, you know, they're kind of gone now. You know, like I'm gonna make my kids watch Some Like It Hot one of these days.
I just did a 5 on this about the guy who did the announcing for the New York Yankees since I was little.
Yeah.
Retired after 64 years. He did 5,000 plus games, not missing one.
Wow.
I have only ever known
this guy to be
for my life that guy as the voice of the Yankees, and he retired. And I just it's a different thing to hear. And I mean I remember hearing that with my dad driving to and from work when I was young. Like that to me is the Yankees, is that voice, because a lot of times I'd listen. I didn't watch it all the time, but I'd listen to it a lot because I just have always had an ear for radio stuff, and he had a really good voice. And he finally retired because he's like, I'm 85. I can't do this anymore. He's like, he literally just retired immediately. He was like, you know what? I realized I don't have the gas for this anymore. I'm too old.
I'm tired.
Yeah, but to do over 5,000 games and not miss one consecutive. I don't know that anybody else, maybe Vince Scully or one of the older guys, has done that many, but nobody new does that many anymore. So I know what you mean. I thought, shit, man. This is age. The people that you grow up with, they're dying or retiring.
Yeah, and like, you know, we. So I told you that we watched. I showed my kids Armageddon the other day, because I've come to the realization that Michael Bay. If you can find a Michael Bay movie that's on the line for kids, they're basically kids movies. Michael Bay does kids movies with cursing and you know, and some sexual reference. That's it, right? Because otherwise, any adult will watch these movies and be like, okay, you can't do that. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that. Shit doesn't blow up like that. Okay. But he has his own visual style. Mayhem. Isn't that what they call it? Or Bayham. It's called Bayham.
Bayham.
Yeah, Bayham.
Yeah, Bayham.
Yeah. And so, but the thing about Armageddon is that is like a fucking, oh, Jesus Christ. I can't, Bruce Willis. That's Bruce Willis at like his best. You know, like he looks great in that movie. He's the big hero. You know,
well,
I can't show them
much like
I can't
Ron
show
Silver, where he had this stretch where he was it.
Yeah, I can't show them Die Hard yet, so you know.
Actually, his real power years kind of mirror Ron Silver's a lot, which is 80s when Moonlighting hit to the 2000s, so towards the end of the 90s, because Die Hard, and then 12 Monkeys I think still is probably one, his legitimate acting.
What was cool with Bruce Willis is that I think once he fully lost his hair, he got more badass for a while there.
Yeah, then he was doing Last Boy Scout.
Yeah, that movie's fantastic, right? Yeah. Sure so it's these actors that I want my kids to not miss.
Fifth Element, of course.
I know. I don't know if we're gonna get to that one, but it's these things that we can't miss. I want these characters, these character actors to be there, sort of in their heads, in their head canon. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, I need to find the movies I can break them into. Well,
you know, you've already kind of covered 2 big ones. You got what do you call it? Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
You got the Back to the Future films, because that's 2. Michael J. Fox can't do it anymore. And Christopher Lloyd is
he's old,
not going to be around for much longer. Not because I think he's sick or anything, but he's just not going to be around for much longer.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing, trying to give my kids an appreciation for these older movies, even though they you know, they may not be. Oh my God, the special effects look so dated. I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. It's like they're still good movies.
Well, sometimes they don't, though. Let's be honest. Some of the practical stuff is really good. Not always, but the thing is, this is I was talking about this, not this specific point, but this is a byproduct of it, that we are. Well, you are, because I'm not a parent, but parents like you who want to show this older stuff, you are at a huge advantage because everything is so pristine now as far as the format. Whereas my parents, to show me older movies, would have had to show me on a shitty VHS, and I would have been like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? Because I'm watching movies now from the 30s that have never looked as good as they look now, except when they were in the theater.
Oh man!
So you could show
Back to the Future
to your kids, and they look sensational.
Yeah, we saw the Ultra HD version of that.
That's what I'm saying.
Amazing.
It probably looks better than the theater I saw it in.
It did. It looked fantastic.
Yeah, because I didn't have a IMAX theater when I was younger. That shit didn't exist. So I was watching. What I'm saying is, You are actually probably showing your kids a better version of a movie you love than you would have seen it at the time. And then we watched it on VHSs forever that looked like garbage.
Most of the versions I saw were bad VHS copies.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's almost paradoxical.
It's kind of funny. I had a grand aunt. What do you call your mom's cousin? Is
it great aunt?
Great aunt. I had a great aunt. There you go. So I had a great aunt, and we were particularly close. She went kind of nuts later on in life, and we didn't really have a lot to do with it. But when I was younger, she was the youngest of this crowd. My grandmother lived with two of her sisters, and then and then other sisters lived nearby, and then there was like some brothers, and there was just a lot of them kind of floating around in Florida, where I spent every summer for like most of my youth. And she was one of the youngest people there, and she was very into like action movies, and she wore a black leather jacket, which later on I look back now and I'm like, why were you wearing that in Florida? She didn't ride or anything like that. She just liked it. But she used to VHS copy every movie she rented, and then she used to. Do you know how you could do the low quality format, so you could get 3 movies on one VHS?
Long player.
Slow. So she used to basically do that format and get like 3 movies on a VHS for us.
My dad did that too.
And then give them to us, like kind of as a present to take with us, because my parents weren't gonna let us watch these movies. So like I had a disc that had Commando. What was the other one? It was Commando, the Exterminators. With the robot.
Yeah,
man.
with the guy who was a half tank.
Yeah, half tank. Yeah. So it was Commando.
Yes.
Oh, Commando, Big Trouble in Little China, and the I just forgot the name of it. I just told you what it was. The
Exterminators.
The Exterminators. Yeah, it was those 3 on a VHS. I watched that shit so many times.
And of course, that degrades the tape too.
And it does, yeah. It's fun.
So progressively in small granular ways, you would never notice it as you did.
But as a kid,
year later,
you just kept watching it because you're like, this is fucking awesome.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is, I don't think people really have thought about that all that much.
Oh, the quality, yeah.
That the movies watching now
is amazing.
Are different than we saw them.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
and they don't degrade.
Like I said, unless you were near a really great theater.
Yeah.
Because my theaters when I was a kid, they were fine.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any different because there was no goddamn HD whatever then. But I knew they weren't like a New York City super theater.
I don't think it matters. I think if a movie is good, you watch it shitty or not.
No. I'm not saying it matters as far as the content. What I'm saying is you are showing your kids something in the best possible quality. Compared to, like I said, I remember my father tried to show me an old black and white movie. I don't even remember which one, and I remember I got bored because it looked like shit. And I was like, now of course I'd watch it.
Pioneer did the re-release of Akira in theaters.
Oh, the theater, yeah, and
it was so clear and perfect.
Oh, it was gorgeous. The only problem with it is I don't like the dub as much, but that's okay.
Yeah, I know the kids' voices.
I know his name is Canada. I just like to hear the old turtle.
Canada.
Canada. And the Tetsuo voice is better. I'm sorry, the Tetsuo voice is better in the old one, and unfortunately, that was not in surround. Which I wish they would just do. I know they probably can't, but give me the surround one.
Yeah,
that Tetsuo guy was. I'm gonna wipe this guy all over the street. It's better. I'm sorry, it's better. I don't care if it's more accurate. It's better.
I have to find these movies that I don't want to lose the time. I want my kids to. And the thing is, my wife doesn't remember a lot of these either. She didn't remember Armageddon at all. And I was like, listen, it's not that Armageddon not that Armageddon is a good movie. It's just like it's fast food. Sometimes Burger King is okay, especially when you're on a car trip and you're like, let's just get Burger King and being terrible, right? That's Armageddon. Yeah. Armageddon is just awful Bayham fast food. It's a double Bayham with cheese. Probably more than that, heavy cheese. But it's finding these movies and getting them into kind of just the imagination, because the same thing that you always say, you watch these bad movies or these low budget movies because there's these little jewels in there that you kind of carry through in your mind that may come out into something else and create something. Well, you know what? I watched Armageddon when I was a kid, and there's aspects of that movie that are good that will get expressed later on in some other format. You know, Bruce Willis's character. Bruce Willis is going to pop out at some point in one of my books. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of thing. It's these things that you digest them and they get into kind of that lower consciousness, and then at some point they kind of bubble out. So it's like, you know, we watched Back to the Future trilogy, we watched Armageddon, and it's like, you know, now I'm kind of sitting there, well, what's next? And my wife's like, we should watch Karate Kid. And I'm like, no, it's like, I want sci-fi. I was like, I want to watch some cool sci-fi, but they're not ready for Total Recall. So, and my kids are always like, can we watch this? I'm like, that's too adult for you. And they're like, why is
Dragon Slayer?
What's Dragon Slayer? You know, Dragon Slayer's kind of, I gotta look at that movie again because
I don't think there's anything. The only part now,
I don't remember at this moment. I remember
I remember that.
I remember I worry that when they kill the woman, the sacrifice. But I gotta look at clips. Is what I gotta do.
Maybe. Actually, the most horrifying part of that for a child might be to see the dragon all burned and dead, where they're just like looking at the rotted flesh of the thing. Because that's. I don't know that I've ever seen a dragon's death depicted
that won't bother
that
them.
Viscerally in any other film.
I'll say something like dragons are good eating baked, and the kids will be like, ha 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 ha.
Well, that'll be fun. But what I mean is, can you think of another movie where they showed something like that?
No,
I can't think of it.
Not like that. No, and that was great
like somebody wanted to do that for special effects. They're like, no, we're going to show you the dead dragon annihilated.
And I think that's the other thing too, is to go back and to show the movies where it's practical effects. You know, that's fantastic because now everything that can be CG is CG. But to go back and to have these movies where it's like, that is a suit, guys. That's a person in there. That thing is moving. You know, like, yeah. I want to watch Predator with my kids, but they're not there yet. No. You know, like that's too much. And the thing is, I don't want to speed this up. You know, that's the thing about kids is they grow up so fast. It's like, I wanted to get there that quickly. We just got to find the right movies at the right time.
Have you watched Flight of the Navigator with them?
We haven't yet, and it's
That's
one
not
of
a
those
bad
things.
Movie. It holds up all right.
It's nothing I have a problem with. It's just that whenever it comes up on the list, there's always something else we'd rather watch.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I thought about that one. My wife hasn't seen that one at all.
War Games.
And the thing about Enemy Mine is like when that kid is born, and the movie becomes about him and that kid. I was like, oh, my kids will probably really adore that. But that movie is also very heavy, you know. And I'm trying to get them into these movies where there are consequences.
Well, the heavy part about that is the slave camp. But that's actually good. That's a good thing.
Well, that's the thing. You can't have good without bad. Bad things have to happen.
I was going to say, it's still not so heavy a kid can't process it. It's showing you what's happening, but it's not. You know, you don't see a kid's head get sawed off when the aliens' heads get sawed off.
Yeah, I know. But the thing, Louis Gossett Jr., there's another actor that, you know, Iron Eagle, you know, like there's movies from my youth. That guy was in a ton of shit.
Yeah.
You know, like,
no.
You know, it's like, think about, to get racial here for a minute, think about the black men that you grew up with in cinema that made you realize that racism was a joke. Yeah. You know, think about that. Because, like, for me, it's like one of the earliest memories I have of, like, black actors, Keith David. That
was exactly who I was going to go to.
Louis Gossett Jr., Danny Glover, and, oh, man, what's his name? LeVar Burton. Because he did, of course. Because he did Reading Rainbow.
And Star Trek.
Yeah.
Actually, I always think of Reading Rainbow first. People
yes.
Like, oh, yeah, Star Trek. I'm like,
no, Reading Rainbow first.
I know him from Reading Rainbow, really.
And think about that. I mean, that's a big deal that got into your head.
Here's a question. What about The Abyss? Is that too old for them?
Okay, so the only part of The Abyss that we worry about is the when she's dead and he's trying to bring her back to life. Because there's a level of intensity that
there is, but
I don't know yet if they can handle it. You know what I mean? Because like there's, and that's really where we're at now.
It is. It's intensity.
Because there's you know, there's a high rate. There's a rated R rating where there's like cursing or there's too much sex and things like that. But there's also like intensity where it's like, is this too intense? Is this something that like?
I mean, it is, but she does live.
Oh, she does. Yeah.
So I think that would make it all right. If she didn't, I'd say, no, you can't watch that because that'd be terrible if she actually just still died after all that.
Yeah, and that, but that mean that movie is intense. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see.
What about Oh, that'd be too boring.
We could listen. We could go on all night for movies. The list is endless.
Well, I was gonna say Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but I don't know if kids would be able to hang with that.
Movie.
It's long.
That movie bored me a bit when I was a little kid. It wasn't until I got a little older that I was like, oh,
well,
this is
you could
cool.
you could go, and I know people are gonna object to this classification, but I was gonna say you could go with a more lightweight version and go with Contact.
Oh,
I know it's not more lightweight.
That will bore them. Okay. I think I get Contact would bore them a little bit because that movie has a lot of kind of waiting for it.
It does. Yeah. Stargate?
We've watched Stargate, man.
I was gonna say it seems like an obvious one.
Man,
so
you know what? You want to talk about like scenes that get into your head for the rest of your life? That scene in Stargate was Spader says to Kurt Russell, he's going into the elevator and he says, "Wait for me."
Wait for me. No, that's the scene I always think of.
Oh my god,
the way he delivers the line, I always think of. He's like, "Wait for me."
The way he beams out. The way he delivers. You know, there are sequences.
It's great.
Yeah, there's sequences.
I can't believe that's the same scene for you because I always think of
that.
No,
what I'm saying is there's sequences in movies that I always want to write something that is that intensely awesome. And that scene,
or when he says "see you around, Dr. Jackson," and walks through, like there's such a great.
The wait for me
is I know.
As the thing is phasing up and he's disappearing.
Yes.
Oh, that's just fucking
phasing
awesome.
Out. It's great. No, it's the best scene. It's Spader, of course it is. What I'm saying is, there's multiple moments in that thing where it's like that movie is not well regarded. I think by a lot of people.
Here's what Stargate. Why? Because it's a Roland Emmerich movie.
Well, I think there's that retro degrading of it because people are, he went on to make shittier versions of bad movies or whatever, or lesser quality films. But also, I think a lot of people think the series was better, and so that makes the movie somehow lesser.
Yeah, but the series only exists because the movie was good.
I know,
and honestly, there was never a moment.
Kurt Russell and James Spader.
There was never a moment in that show that was good as that one moment where he says, "Wait for me." Yeah, and I'll tell you, but what's really funny is I'm watching Armageddon the other night with the kids, and there's that scene where Bruce Willis stuffs Ben Affleck back in the elevator and rips his suit so he can't do it, and he's walking out, and Ben Affleck has like a full-on meltdown, right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, why is this better than when Kirk dies in the J.J. Abrams remake of Wrath of Khan?
Well, it's true.
I was like, this Bayham shouldn't be better than Abrams. But you know that
is the one.
But you know that
really moment of that movie.
Abrams is on. I think he was one of the executive producers of Armageddon. His name is on.
Well, no. Abrams is an interesting. person.
He's around.
Well, the thing is, when you read interviews from him or about where he's talking about, it's very clear that he wants to be 3 or 4 different directors. Spielberg's one. McTiernan feels like another one, like Predator. Like he wants to be in these things, and that's why he does imitations of them. He's like the thing.
Yeah, but that's the thing. As a director, as any artist, you are also always chasing those amazing moments from movies, books, shows, whatever that you.
I'm not blaming him for that.
No. I'm not blaming him. I think that's completely normal.
Yeah, but it does not surprise me when I see his name pop up on a lot of things.
Yeah, 8mm is a Spielberg homage. Right? But the thing is, like, that sequence from Stargate when he says, "Wait for me," the movie builds up to it. It's fucking fantastic. And I'm like, yeah, I want a moment like that in one of my books where somebody goes, "Oh, yeah, that's cool." Like
Star Trek 09 is a Michael Bay film.
Yes.
Yeah. That's Abrams doing Michael Bay.
There's lens flare Bayham. Yeah, there is.
And there's a lot of blowing up, and the worm black, the red matter. All that's Michael Bay imprinted. So no, I'm not. That does not shock me.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't mind it. I just think he's kind of like Lucas. Like, just direct it. Let somebody else write it. Do the direction, man. Do your visual stuff, or Zack Snyder. Same thing. Let somebody else handle the word stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Because when you're doing all of it, it's not that great.
And I'm trying to think if there's another movie that has a moment like that for me. That moment where that character, it's like a one line from a character that it's not even like an action sequence necessarily, but it's just the stakes are so high and it just hits you where you're like, yeah.
Almost every movie has one or two moments.
Every movie tries. Every movie tries.
No, every movie I really like has something like that. It may not be not be a 1-to-1.
When Roy Batty catches Harrison Ford in Blade Runner and picks him up.
That's what it's like to live in fear.
Yeah, you know, and you're like, oh, Jesus, yeah.
That's what it is to be a slave, or whatever he says. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, so it's things like that. You're always looking for that in whatever story you're being told. You know, and I said to my wife, I was like, part of the reason I think Armageddon works for kids is because there's a lot of tension, but there's also a lot of Bayham is all about those moments of which appeals to like a 13-year-old boy. You know, like
look, it's like I've said, I can think of almost every movie I really like has something like that. For example,
they look like psychos. Is that what they look like? They were vampires. Psychos do not explode when sunlight hits them. I don't give a fuck how crazy they are.
Yeah.
I cannot think of that line all the time.
The most badass George Clooney role he ever had, yeah. And
one of the best line deliveries of any film I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So it may not have the stakes like you said, but it's the whole. It's
the delivery,
it's like,
yeah.
That's you know, and that also at the end of the film, like that's a great moment at the tail end, the very tail end of that film.
That leads right up to it, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, there's all kinds of stuff like that.
So yes, I'll be careful and be digging to see if I can find the good material for them to watch. Although we are watching the female doctor. What's her name? What's your real
Jodie
name?
Whittaker.
Jodie Whittaker. We're in
you
the
Jodie Foster. You said Jodie Foster the other night.
Yeah. Well, no. What it was is I was talking about Eccleston.
You said fucked by Doctor Who, but you said Jodie Foster, and I thought you were mixing them up. So I was like, what episode did you watch?
No.
I don't remember this. I don't remember Jodie Whittaker getting railed in the TARDIS. What is happening?
So we're on the Whittaker years. And you know what? I'm enjoying it. I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit. There's a few episodes that have been very sort of old school Doctor Who, like when they go back in time to see Rosa Parks. You know, like they're definitely pulling on other aspects of Doctor Who for this. It does feel very different from Capaldi, even from Matt Smith. Like it does feel like they tried to break and do some other shit with it. I mean, it's got its weaknesses like anything, but I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit, and I really enjoy their new opening. It's very sort of organic and reminds me of like the original theme music.
I just thought, by the way, of something that's an analog to the Spader line.
What's
and
that?
It's Antonio Banderas in the 13th Warrior where he does the prayer before they descend on the
tower. Oh, it's not as good for me. No.
Oh, that's
no.
Okay.
It's good. Don't get me wrong.
It is equally as
it's good, but it's not for me. It's not as good. You know what? That "wait for me" line. Jesus, that pops into my head randomly, and I'm always like,
Banderas thing. All these lines pop in my head depending on what I'm doing.
Honestly, you know what? For me, there was in Farscape. They did this in season 1. I know season 1 is weak of Farscape, right? It's the weakest of the seasons, but there's a moment in that first season where Crichton and Dargo are floating in space. Dargo doesn't have a spacesuit on, and they've just blown up. Scorpius's planet, his moon, whatever. And Aaron is trying to get to them, and Crichton actually says to her, he's like, you know, I don't. What does he say? Something like, I don't think it's gonna matter soon. He's like, Dargo's not breathing. And it's like the way he delivers it and the way they ended on that is always so wonderfully kind of like crushing this idea that, like, you know, even if you succeed at this point, it might not work, you know. And it's like one of the best moments of season 1 of that show for me.
End of Batman Begins. I never said thank you, and you'll never have to. And then he jumps off the building. See, those are all equal to me because they're so good in their own movies, and they all do tend to be towards the end of the movies. Huh? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, but the thing is, I live for those moments in movies that just feel.
Oh, so do I.
Perfect.
I can hear them all the time.
Yeah, you know. So it's I know I should start writing those down and remember them. We can compare notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love
just
that.
Go pull clips.
yeah. You know, we should do that. We should build a show of
clips
of those lines that just make you feel. Right, you know.
Let me make a note in my phone. Hold on a second. The beauty of having a phone that's a computer is make a note.
You know,
they're all under Bob Ross paintings, even though they're not Bob Ross paintings. That's just my header title for everything now. Is movie clips, Spader moments.
Spader moments.
As long as I know that. Yeah, as long as I know that, Spader, I know exactly what it's referring to.
I'll have to think about
Stargate
that now. All the Spader Stargate moments.
I'll start getting them. That's easy.
Yeah, I used to look for those in TV shows because TV shows you've got so much more
there's a ton
media, it gives you a lot more chance to get those kind of moments
yeah.
But
Sure.
what's the there's a lot of good ones out there.
There's
Anyway,
yeah.
What have you?
I looked at my phone because I forgot. I wanted to bring this up. I mentioned to you when I thought of this. I've coined a new term, everybody. I own this word, so I'm trademarking it now. And that word will be the show title so that everybody can see it. So Luscular.
Luscular.
That is my word now.
So now is that those who lust after muscular people?
After Amazonian women.
Muscular.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, you're right. Amazonian.
Well, it is directly
figures.
in reference to
but
lusting over. I do like jack women. My wife was getting annoyed with me because
that's where it came from.
Because we were playing.
That's where it came from.
Whenever we play video games, I would much rather be a jacked woman than a jacked man because if I have to stare at a character, I've said this before, if I have to stare at a character for hours, then you know what? I want it to look nice, and I'd have a thing for big muscular women. Now, this is going to sound very it's going to sound very cliche, but it's kind of a thing now. Ever since Carlat came out, the whole muscle mommy thing has come out.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Where it predated that? Remember the giant woman from Resident Evil 8?
Oh, with her?
Did you see any of that?
Yeah, but I mean, she's just a big vampire lady.
Well, yeah, but she's 8 feet tall, and she's. I don't.
No,
she's not wearing skin tight muscle outfits, but she's jacked.
Listen, this goes back to Red Sonja. This goes back to Conan.
Oh, I was going to say it predates, but it jumped off again with that.
It's the fucking Valkyrie, man. Conan but it became this lady woman.
Whatever step on me meme started.
It's Xena. Xena's another example of that. You know, like
Chun-Li. Chun-Li's the 90s version of that.
Whenever I make characters,
Bridget Nielsen,
yes,
Grace Jones, this is all the same thing.
So whenever we play games, I make these kind of muscular ladies. So when we're doing our second run on Baldur's Gate, and I made I was trying to make a bard, and the best bards were like wood elves, and I was like, fine, I'll do that. And I made this big jacked female, and my wife walked in and she saw the character, and Joe could hear her, and she's like, so man, you so got a type. And I'm like, no, I don't. I was like, I like all women, I like all shapes and sizes. I was like, but if you're in a video game universe, you might as well be a big jacked lady. And I do find big jacked women to be very sexy. Whereas our friend Snedeker, his line is, if I can see veins in her arm, that's disgusting. He likes he likes his women.
Does he think women are made of, I don't know, cinnamon rolls? What the hell does that mean?
No, he likes. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't want to. Like, when you can get like veiny arms because you're so jacked.
No, I know.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't like that at all. He likes.
I mean, I don't exactly love seeing veins on top of muscles.
No, I like jacked ladies, and I was joking around with Joe.
I don't like veins on my arms either. So
and I misspoke, and I think I said luscular, and you were like, "Yep, that's a word. That's the word for it from now on. It's luscular. Yep, is lusting for muscular women." So now you have to disseminate this.
No. I definitely came up with the word. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it's mine. But it was from that conversation, for sure.
You have to disseminate it now, and you have to get people to use it.
It's going in the show title.
That's how
so
it
now
works.
SEO from Google will pick it up, and it will be disseminated everywhere. And when somebody wants... Oh, Jesus, hold on.
Yeah?
Shit, hold on.
Are you looking?
I have to go to Hover and see if the domain's available. Son of a bitch. Because when this comes out... Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't have that kind of influence. Somebody's going to register that. Hold on. Is it available? Because I will buy that. I love that word.
Considering that it's not a real word yet, it's kind of.
Well, it will be now. Luscular.com is available. Add to cart. Yeah, I'll be purchasing that shortly. Okay, got it. And redirecting it.
And there's some fantastically luscular women out there.
There are.
So
I sent you a link to a statue of one.
Yes, you did. You're trying to distract me, you bastard.
No, I didn't bring it up during the show.
Because you sent it to me, and I was mid-conversation with you, and my brain was like, I have to look at this.
Did you send me an Instagram link?
I sent you a luscular woman.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah. There's lots of luscular women out there in the world.
Yeah, I meant to send
it's
you
It's a bit of a heyday for myself. It's all out there. But yes, so this is Joe's word. He wants it to get out there. So, if you... know somebody who has a lust for muscular women, or you yourself are one of the anointed, use that word.
Yeah, use it. It's great. It's even though it is not a real word, as you said, it sounds right. It looks right. That's the thing. Is,
it looks like it should be some kind of Latin.
It looks like the word for what it should be. A lot of times, you can come up with words all the time and they don't quite translate. But if I were to type that to somebody, I think my wife's working. She's like cooking stuff, so I won't bother her. But I would bet if I showed her that and asked her what she thought it meant,
Luscular.
then she'd get pretty close.
I would imagine that would mean lusting for muscular people.
Yeah, and that's close enough. I mean, like I said, it's what is it? Onomatopoetically correct.
Onomatopoeia.
Is it onomatopoeia? When it sounds like
like what it
that
is.
was in The West Wing at one point. I don't know if you've gotten to that episode, so I remembered that because what's his face is in it. Well, you would know because you would recognize the actor. He was the guy in Deadwood who ran the bar. What's the guy's name?
Yeah.
Swearinger. Yeah, Swearinger's playing a Russian, so be ready for that if it hasn't happened.
What's it? Ian
McShane.
There you go.
Yes.
Ian McShane.
Yeah, he shows up and he uses the word onomatopoeia because he's playing a Russian who could barely speak English.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, there you go.
But like I said, you would if it had happened, you would have.
And I think the other thing too about that I appreciate about muscular women is that it takes work to get jacked like that. I totally even if you take steroids, that's the other thing. I always explain to people, even if you take
you could
steroids,
take the words like that off. It takes work to get jacked.
Yeah, what I'm saying, even if you take steroids, it's not like you take steroids because this is a myth that a lot of people have.
And your muscles
that
just pop
you
out.
wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I'm fucking jacked now. It's like no. You still have to go to the gym. You still have to do the hard work. It just makes it easier. But it doesn't make it
takes
easy.
down some of the hurdles. You still have to run the track.
Yeah. Oh, did you read about the steroid Olympics that they're trying to organize?
I'm all for it.
So am I.
At least be obvious about it.
If
stop the mythology, it doesn't happen.
If these people want to get jacked on performance enhancers and fucking blow the doors off, then by all means, if that's what they want to do.
I have been saying for years that because I'm a baseball fan, my big problem with baseball is this pretending and excusing of drug use.
Is this the whole Jose Canseco thing? Where like suddenly he got jacked.
It's not,
he was huge.
Okay. There's a number of guys, Barry Bonds too, whose head size was three times what it was when he started. Let's give me a fucking break. And they're like, well, fuck you. It wasn't proven. Look at him. Stop it. Anyway, and look at him now, where his head has suddenly magically come down 3 sizes. I mean, you shrink when you get older. You don't shrink that quick in that short of time. You just do not unless you're being enhanced. But my point is, either say that there are actual consequences for drug use and enforce them in a big way, meaning you can't do it because right now they pussyfoot around it in suspensions.
There are consequences
say it's legal
to your health.
Well, no, but these people don't care about that though. I'm talking about their professional careers.
I know, but what I'm saying is there is consequence. It will. It does hurt you.
Yeah, but within your professional career, either make the consequences real, where they affect your money and your ability to play, or
this is why,
say we don't care and let everybody juice up and say the hell with it.
Yeah, this is why I was always... Now, first off, I wouldn't know where to get steroids. Let's be like that. I've never been that type to go, hunting for drugs or something like that. So I wouldn't even know where to take steroids. But I was always afraid of them because the idea is that, these things... You are dealing with things that can screw you up really badly.
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty jacked as is, just doing the hard work and eating right. And I would it be easier if I was on steroids? Yeah, it would, but it doesn't make it easy. And honestly, Jesus, could you imagine me on steroids? I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to wear a shirt.
No. You'd be pretty big.
I would, considering how I told my wife one time, I was like, maybe I should do steroids for like just a year and see what happens, like joking. And she was like, no fucking way. She's like, nothing would fit you and the roid rage would be awful. And that's the other thing is like the rage that some of these people you get. I know people who've done steroids and personality wise, it did not do them any favors.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You wonder why some of these athletes are like, beating their wives and smacking them.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Well,
I don't.
There you go. It's like, if you I understand if your body's on the line, and that's your job, then you look at it and you go, well, I can be on this for a while. Like actors have this now, which is very interesting. Which is that Disney, Marvel is sitting there going, no, you need to look superhuman, and you're sitting there going, I'm not going to get this acting job that may change my life if I can't look like a superhero.
Yeah.
Right. So what are you going to do? You going to take the roids, or are you going to,
Stupid.
go do who's this Samuel? Is it Samuel Goldwyn? They do a lot of art movies. I'm trying to think. Or A38. They're the ones that do a lot of.
A24.
A24. Are you going to just keep doing some low budget A24 movies? And there's a lot of people that are sitting there going, no, you know what? I want that big paycheck. I'll just do it for a while. And the thing is, like, was it Chris Evans? When Chris Evans turned around and he was like, yeah, because I don't want to be Captain America anymore. And everyone was like, but why? Yeah. You're like, because
I'm sick of it.
Because he doesn't want to have to look like that. And I'm telling you right now, you don't look like that quickly unless you do something.
It sounds like hell.
Yeah, and you can't...
Especially when you've already locked it in. You've done the best movies you're probably going to do as that character, and you're getting older. Screw it.
Listen,
you did it. It's done.
The only reason that Hugh Jackman is going to do Wolverine for Ryan Reynolds, other than the fact that they're friends, is because Ryan Reynolds was like, you don't need to train.
Look like whatever the fuck
we'll
you
put
want,
you
man.
in the fucking suit. Just get big arms, and you're good to go.
Or just, kind of be big, and we'll play it off. Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to look like you did in the Wolverine. It'll never happen again.
But what's hilarious is you look at him when he did the first X-Men movie and he's shirtless and he's just kind of like, he's muscular, but he's lanky. He's natural.
And you know what the stupid part is? Yeah. It's not like Wolverine looked like that in the Wolverine. He always looked like he had muscles, but not like he was ripped.
No, he looked like he was.
That's not mine.
He looked like he could put his fist through your fucking chest. That's what he looked like.
But he looked like a Canadian trucker who just happened to be muscled underneath. He did. And that's always that's my picture of Wolverine is not a ripped dude. My picture of Wolverine is a dangerous short guy.
Yeah. What's funny about this is that this is like the period that we're going through now, right? But remember, by today's standards, what's her name? Blonde.
Thank you. Blonde.
Sorry, my brain was like Drew Barrymore. No, like she slept. She was
Jennifer.
No, she slept with Kennedy. She slept with Kennedy. What's her name? She was the blonde bombshell.
Oh, Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, sorry. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, by today's standards, is fat. If Marilyn Monroe was running around today in Hollywood, they'd be like, oh, you're a bit too hefty for these roles. And you're like, Marilyn Monroe is fucking gorgeous. But, she was a curvaceous lady. Beauty standards change for men and women. And right now we're going through this phase where they want the men to look like superheroes and the women to be waifs. I was horrified when I watched Captain Marvel and how skinny they have her in that movie. Like, she looks like it doesn't look good. It's kind of scary how skinny she is.
It's disturbing.
So, it's it'll be interesting, 50 years down. Well, we're old men, really old men, if we get there.
Well,
what
you remember,
the beauty standards will look like then.
As you remember, the period where I liked Milla Jovovich the most in terms of physicality is when she was pregnant in the early times, because she started putting on some weight.
That was right up your alley, yeah. But think about the 80s, too. Think about growing up in the 80s and what we saw in the 80s. What? Yeah. What is it? Think of the blonde, the acid blonde, plastic surgery, like...
what's her face? Barbed wire.
Yeah. Pamela Anderson. Yeah.
Pamela Anderson.
Yeah.
That's it. Right there.
Like that.
Which never made any sense to me.
Yeah. I didn't know how she stayed upright. But that's because, like I said, for me, it goes back to Valkyries and Conan. You know what I mean? Where you're like,
right.
Yeah. That's why I like Molly so much in what do you call it? In a Neuromancer. I like a woman that can kick my ass, So, yeah. I'd be curious to see, like I said, what beauty standards, where it goes after this. Because, I mean, there was a time where, you didn't have to work out for a movie. You could just show up and be like a out of weight,
right?
I mean, with Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen has a career, man.
No kidding.
And like John Candy. John Candy had a fantastic career. Man was obese his whole life.
Well, yes, he was.
Do you think that would happen today? Is there a John Candy today?
Well, is there a John Candy today? Because we had Chris Farley, but he's dead.
He's also deceased.
Then we had...
then
there was Kevin James, but I think he's lost weight, so that's
like
over
a really out of shape actor that is very popular.
Well, there always have been, but they tend to then lose weight. Seth Rogen was very big.
Yeah, he was.
He's slimmed down. I'm trying to think. There's somebody. Kevin Smith was very big and slimmed down. He was going to die. Yeah. But I mean, he was one of the most popular people walking around for a while, and that was when he was at his biggest and was dressed horrifically. So,
Yeah, I just, because honestly, right now, for me, I know that you may not disagree, but what's her name? The woman who is, oh God, she did Bridesmaids. She's the one that shits in the sink. What's her name?
Kristen Garrett? No,
not the lead. She's the.
Oh, you mean not Michelle. What's her? It's like double M's, isn't it?
Yeah. It's I can't remember her name either.
Oh God, what's her name?
Yeah, she's got a movie where she calls somebody a limp dick unicorn. My wife loves it. What is her name?
Yeah. Her and her husband did a show for a while
yes,
where they were two big people.
Hold on, I'll tell you in 1 second. I've almost got it.
It really pisses me off.
It's
I can't remember.
Melissa McCarthy. Melissa McCarthy.
There you go. I knew it was two M's.
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy is probably the closest thing you have to that right now, where she's not in shape, and yet she is still popular, and she does a lot of movies, and she's very funny. Because who's the Australian actress who was very big for a while, and then she lost an absolute ton of weight.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Which is kind of weird looking,
Yeah, there's nobody for today except for, and he's not really a movie guy, is Gabriel Iglesias. That guy's big, and he's a comedian, and he's well known.
Yeah,
That's the only person I can think of who's that size.
Yeah, it's like this is the phase we're going through.
To look through fat comedians.
Oh,
Jack Black? Yeah, Jack Black is big, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, he's probably the closest thing to it because he's always been kind of biggish.
He's it because everybody else, except there's Gabriel Iglesias again, but everybody else on this list has lost massive amounts of weight. Chris Farley's dead. Seth Rogen lost weight. Jonah Hill lost weight.
Yeah, Jack Black is
Louis C.K. is not as big as these people are making him out to be. Ricky Gervais has lost weight.
Yeah,
Jon Favreau has lost weight. All these.
Yeah.
Oh, Eric Stone Street. Well, he's known for
But think
TV.
about that. There was a period where there were no jacked actors. Honestly, you know what?
Drew Carey lost weight.
When
Wayne
Arnold
Knight lost weight.
When Arnold
James
Schwarzenegger got big, he was like one of the biggest guys. He was the biggest fucking guy. And then you just had this group of actors. But when they did that movie Tango and Cash with Kurt Russell and
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, Stallone was like twice the size of Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell was never.
Well, Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China would be considered schlubby.
Yeah, he was.
He's got a double chin. Yeah. I mean, he really does. Compared to say
Soldier.
Holy shit!
Because he was a trucker.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's closer to what I think Wolverine looks like than what. I mean, don't get me wrong, not 1-to-1, but I'm saying my Wolverine, half the height, of course, leans more towards Kurt Russell than it does towards Hugh Jackman and the Wolverine.
My Wolverine is basically Mel Gibson. From Mel Gibson and Lethal Weapon.
But when Kurt Russell has his shirt off in Big Trouble in Little China, he's not fat.
No, he's not. He's healthy.
And that's what I'm saying. You compress him down, and I can see it.
Yeah, but he's not that kind of cinematic jack that they want everybody now.
Right, and that's why in the Wolverine, even though you go, wow, that's amazing,
but
he's in that shape.
Yeah, but
it doesn't look like Wolverine.
Yeah, but the thing is that's the whole what do you call it when they dehydrate them? They basically dehydrate the skin. It is that. So much about that is so artificial.
But that is what you're talking about. Yeah. That is the modern expectation of a superhero, even if it's not the character.
Yeah.
Which it is not the character. That is not what Wolverine. I mean, they've drawn him that way, but that is not the classic way. When you see Wolverine with his shirt off in the older comics, he's not rocking a six-pack like that.
And what's really funny is even when you go back to the 80s comics where they had a lot of really athletic females in skin-tight superhero costumes, none of them are properly jacked. They are fit, but even then they were like, well, we want our women to have giant boobs and be feminine, even though they're badasses. And you're like, yeah, but wouldn't she be more jacked than that? No, shush your tongue.
Yeah, I'm looking at one of John Byrne's
illustrations
of Wolverine.
She-Hulk is the closest thing you get to that. She-Hulk is probably the most anatomically correct.
Here's
she
Weapon
has
X.
a gigantic chest as well.
Weapon X, where he's nude.
Yeah,
he is not ripped.
No, he's
muscled.
not. No, he's
not ripped.
Lanky.
And that's what I'm saying.
He's lanky and toned. Yes.
Yep.
And that's the thing is that is what I mean. It's weird, but that's kind of what male actors used to look like in these movies.
Yes.
John Wayne. Trying to think, Lee Marvin.
The non-Banderases of the 13th Warrior largely look like normal guys as
big,
far as
tall guys.
They're big, tall, thick guys.
Broad shoulders, look like they can handle themselves, but not ridiculously like.
But you can't take a piece of tracing paper and do dry rubs of their abs and have it come out looking symmetrical, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's not happening.
Dry rubs.
So, it's not like in, what do you call it, The Last Crusade, where he does the rubbing of the fucking tablet. And you can't do that with those guys. Look at this. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Now, I did not know about this when I said this, but I just happened to see, because I looked up 80s Wolverine just to see if I was remembering
is this the Danny DeVito one?
No. It's that.
Hold
so
on.
you see, I'm not the only one who thought, Big Trouble Kurt Russell doesn't exactly look wrong for Wolverine of the 80s.
You've seen the Danny DeVito Wolverine thing.
I have, and it's hysterical. And
awesome.
In a parody movie, perfection. Like a joke movie, it'd be great.
Yes, but Kurt Russell.
But that's what I'm saying.
Kurt Russell's still too tall.
No, I
You know what? You know what I
feel.
want at this point? Oh, what's his name? Yeah. I forgot his name
Puck?
now.
Puck.
No. The guy who plays Tyrion Lannister. Dinklage. I want Peter Dinklage. I want Peter Dinklage to play Wolverine. Let's just go straight for it. He's an amazing actor. He has a good rage face. Give it to Dinklage.
Honestly, they could do it really easily with him by doing the whole Quicksilver thing from the Ultimates, where Wolverine goes into Berserker Rage and you just don't see what's going on. The guy's cut into 4 pieces and he's standing there. And
I want Dinklage to have a hallway scene where he walks down the room with the claws and just rips everyone to pieces.
I'm fine with that too.
Man, you know what? Yeah. I didn't realize I wanted that as much till I said it. Man, I really do want Dinklage as Wolverine. No. I don't think he'd do it. Hold on.
No.
Hold on. If I've thought it, somebody must have done it. Hold on.
I'm sure somebody. Yes, of course they have. He was already in the movie
as we busily type. Yes. Yeah.
Dinklage Wolverine. There it is.
Dinklage Wolverine. There you go. It's not the best.
You
know what? Listen.
Image I've seen,
listen.
But it's all right.
It's not just me.
No, it's not just you.
That's fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the beauty standards become in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Of what suddenly is beautiful, what men look like. I mean, we're already moving away from like the superhero movies a little bit. So
seems like it.
What happens to the physique? Will we need everyone to be? Will we need them all? I mean, what's funny is my wife actually says to me she's happy that the whole Marvel thing happened, because she was like, you know what? Women were held to such a beauty standard for so long. She was like, it's high time that men were held to a beauty standard. Because
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
makes sense.
So it's it'll be interesting to see where it goes, because I mean right now, if you want to do a Marvel movie, it doesn't matter if you're like, the only person in a Marvel superhero movie who gets away from it is Peter Parker's friend.
Oh yeah,
he's the only one.
Hobie? What's
I think it's Hobie. Yeah, is the only one who gets away with it. Everybody else has to be in good physical condition, great physical condition. You can't be any character in a Marvel movie at this point otherwise and not be. I mean, even fucking
except Professor X and Magneto. I mean, don't get me wrong; they weren't in bad shape, but they certainly weren't. You didn't see Ian McKellen take his shirt off.
No, but those were Fox. That was before.
Yeah, well,
that's
well, they did technically show up in Multitude of Madness.
But at that point, those are great.
And the Wolverine was still Fox, so let's not pretend they weren't doing it. Come on.
Yeah, but that was. What I'm saying is Marvel. Everything in Marvel has to be that way now. They knew that bringing. You're not going to make Patrick Stewart get jacked to be in a wheelchair.
Actually, no. They had Helmsworth stayed as Fat Thor for a while.
Yeah, and they wanted to get rid of that. That was one of the interesting things.
And he fought against
it. They wanted him, the second he got the 2 hammers, they wanted to click those things and suddenly be super fit. And he was like, no.
Right. No.
He's like, that doesn't work. And honestly, I love Fat Thor. My sister was I think she was, when someone gives you like an offensive compliment.
Yeah.
My sister at one point told me that
she called you Chunky Thor.
She said she saw the movie and that Thor looked like me. And I was like, wait a minute, did you just call me Fat Thor? And she was like, yeah, kind of. And I was like, well, it's weird because it's like kind of a backhanded compliment, because you're like,
it is,
because you're like, chest down, there's a big
like,
big gut, but chest up. I mean, you're a god of thunder.
You're in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
on balance, it's still good, but it's not 100%.
Listen, I'd rather be Fat Thor than John Candy.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Although
I'm not disagreeing.
listen, John Candy is Fat Thor. That'd be fantastic too.
John Candy is anything. John Candy was hysterical. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, you wonder if actors like that would even happen today.
It's hard to say. It's a completely different world. So it's
so different.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
it's hard to say.
We'll see. What have you got for me?
Well, I have something weird.
Ooh, like weird.
I mean, not weird as terms of it's what it is, but weird as in it's a movie that isn't bad, but isn't well made, and is very, very ripe for remake approach. Mostly because it's way too long. It should be 80 minutes, and at least the cut I watched, there are 3 different ones, was an hour and 50. And
what is this called?
It's from 1977. It's a German TV film called Operation Ganymede. But you have to leave the E off because I think in German you don't put Ganymede with an E on the end. So I guess Ganymed, even though they say Ganymede. And I read the premise of it, and I thought it was interesting, which was some space shuttle guys go off for a very long-term mission, come back.
Launch to Jupiter.
Launch to Jupiter.
Yeah.
And when they come back, they can't tell what's happened, but they're getting no response from Earth, and they think maybe a nuclear war has happened.
Yeah.
So that's the premise of the movie. I thought, oh, that's interesting. That sounds a little bit like, a couple different things that I've seen, but it had promise. And I saw Jürgen Prochnow's name there, and I went, oh, well, I know who he is, and I like him in almost everything I see. So let's see if this is any good. Ironically, he's playing a Russian when I think he's German. I'm pretty sure, since he's in a lot of German stuff, including Das Boot. I'm pretty sure Jürgen, I don't know, is he? Hold on, I'm saying that.
I love the names of these actors. This guy's name is Horst Frank. So the guy's name is Wolf Mittler. I love that.
Jürgen Prochnow is German. So, and he's playing a Russian, which is, because I was pretty sure he was German. But anyway, so movie starts out, and we immediately get some stock footage of rockets taking off, which is fine. It's a TV movie, so a lot of people complain about the budget. It's a TV movie, so the budget is going to be limited. I don't care. There's obvious stock footage and other things that are inserted in here. You can see some of the costume patches aren't quite holding up, that type of thing. I don't care about any of that stuff. So
are they supposed to be Americans?
3. Okay. Of the 5 who are alive when this starts off.
There's different patches. I see it now.
3 Americans, 1, I don't know what he's supposed to be. They say European, so that could be anything. And then Jürgen Prochnow is a Russian. So, and you will actually hear a bit of dialogue that refers to that. So it's international, and they've gone to Jupiter. They've just gotten back, and they are early. But before we see them, we get the rockets taking off, and then we hear this news report about the mission, which was actually 3 spaceships with, I believe, 20 astronauts, 14 of who have died at this point. Now, on Earth, they don't know that. We will find that out. But basically, this is the news report about the mission. So it's sort of similar. You remember Event Horizon?
Yeah.
They'd kind of written the Event Horizon off because they never heard back from it.
Yeah.
Very similar. So let me play the news report about the mission.
Operation Ganymede, considered as one of the most expensive journeys into space, has now been officially closed. Attempts to re-establish contact with the 3 spaceships have been unsuccessful after having failed in their swing-by maneuver behind the planet Jupiter, a highly ambitious undertaking. The United States agency NASA, as well as the Soviet contact space stations, have abandoned the project. There has been no sign of life from any of the spacecraft for the last 6 months. The return of the 3 7-man spaceships, 21 astronauts, who were to have carried out a manned landing on Jupiter, Operation Ganymede, has been expected to return in 2.5 years. The General Assembly of the United Nations, under whose patronage of which this international mission for peace, friendship, and understanding among the nations had been conducted, rose to their feet at the beginning of today's session in memory of the missing space pioneers, before returning to the day's agenda. The United States Congress has stated that all future funding for space efforts has been discontinued for now.
Now, immediately after that, so it was 21, not 20. And immediately after that, we then cut to the one shuttle that's still alive, that has made the Jupiter round trip maneuver. But I didn't capture all this, or it would be, an hour and a half long. But they are referencing the fact that they lost communication for longer than they thought. But, they were sort of expecting some of that. So they, as far as they know, they don't have any idea what's going on. They've got no transmission saying we've written you off, nothing. They're talking about the fact that they didn't get the communications they thought, but they don't realize that the mission has been cut off. So they're preparing to re-enter, to meet up. At first, they're trying to meet up with, I think, a shuttle. The way they're talking about it is that they're supposed to be docking with a shuttle, and then they'll come down the shuttle. And so the first about 30 minutes, literally, of the movie is all the prep for the docking thing, and where they're not getting communication, and the commander is throughout most of it staying very stoic and in command, and he's like, no, because they're like, well, why aren't we hearing anything? Why aren't we getting a radar ping? All blah, 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 blah. He's like, don't worry about it. We're back earlier than we thought. They may not be in position yet. These things happen. You have to understand that missions are variable. He is sticking with, he does not think there's anything off about this. He thinks that the people are kind of panicking, especially the one guy who's the exobiologist. And you figure out later, clumsily, but you figure it out, is really who the movie is centered on, is this one guy who clearly should not be there. He is not cut out to be an astronaut. They show multiple flashbacks of this guy going through testing and failing and all the rest of it, but nobody's as smart as him, so they basically kind of just make him go, or they kind of like pass him through. But again, it's just not a well-made movie, but it's a really interesting premise, and it's not a bad movie. It's just not made as well as it should have been. And some of it is in the editing, some of it in the storytelling. There's little bits here and there. But that's one of the things you figure out, is that this guy is, because at one point you'll hear the commander reference him as, I thought he was the neurotic guy on the team because he keeps panicking about everything. And the commander's like, don't worry about it. This is what happens in space flight. Not everything is going to go by what the book says. So a lot of people have complained that it shouldn't be 30 minutes of this. I'm sort of on the fence about it. I actually don't mind how long they spend on them doing all their stuff to come back, because they're sprinkling in the little things that aren't right, but doing it subtly. So that, because obviously if they showed up and the planet was missing, we're in trouble. That's like an instant thing. But they're building it up slowly as all these tiny little things like, we didn't get a radar return. It's like, well, the radar may not be functioning correctly. We're in a spacecraft that's endured a lot. Some systems have already failed. These are little things. Don't worry about it. We have visual ways of telling things. We know where the planet is. We can see it. So they're putting all these little things in that will add up to something, but they're not just hitting you with it in one shot. So I don't mind it. Could it have been cut down by 10 minutes? Sure. This whole movie, each section could have been cut down by 10 minutes. So I wouldn't be opposed to cutting it, but I don't mind that first segment as much, because it does set up how wrong things will go later by how much they're just going through their check marks. That's what space flight is. You're going through check marks, getting ready. You have to follow the script, until you really know something's wrong. So I don't mind it. But there is a point at the end of this where everything is prepped, and now what they have to do is contact the shuttle so that they can dock with it and then go back to the surface. And so the commander and Prochnow, who's playing the Russian, are each trying to get a hold of one of their space agencies, NASA on the American side, and I don't remember what, you'll hear him say it, but I don't know what the lettering is for the Russian side. And this is the point where now, when they're really getting no response and can't find anybody, you start to hear the commander lose it a bit, because there's not a reasonable explanation anymore. So I'm going to play this of the two of them contacting. You'll hear the commander start to kind of he actually just gets angry. He's not even panicking. He gets angry at the fact that nobody's there to welcome him. So let me play this.
Ganymede 2 to Capcom. Ganymede 2 to Capcom. Position as planned. We're in Earth's orbit. GSS above Central Africa.
Ganymede 2, wie Sie weit gelingen. Ganymede 2, wie Sie weit gelingen. Position per plan. Zemljaya Arbeit, DLS Norderfritzen.
Energy and oxygen reserves 20 hours. No contact with L1. Repeat. No
Nothing.
They've got to heard us.
They're not answering.
Transmitter's working, our signal's going out. Maybe if they open their ears.
They haven't heard us or seen us for the last 900 days.
Our position was never this good. Capcom, Cape Kennedy on the western horizon. Kalatin Churatam downstairs. They should hear something from this distance. One to Eva, calling Eva. Come in, please. Over.
This is Doug Mack. What's up? Over.
Point it to the western horizon. Lean it 10 to 12 degrees latitudinally. Over.
Gotcha. 10 to 12 degrees towards the western horizon. Over.
It's a lousy piece of junk. That's what it is, a piece of junk.
Well, it got us there and back.
Yeah, Oz. So far. I'm not expecting my president or your first secretary to the party to welcome us personally, but I do expect some son of a bitch to be there waiting for us.
Have you ever thought that you've got a first secretary to the party now?
Or that you might have a freely elected president. After 4 years, 4 months, 3 days, anything is possible, Comrade Osaki.
It sure is. It sure is, Commander.
Let's give it another try.
It won't do any good. We only got the 2 quartz frequencies.
One more Mayday and hallelujah. Then all together they can kiss my ass, the UN and NASA and ESA. Here come our great heroes. After 1 billion kilometers in outer space and 4.5 years away, welcome home. Home from the most hazardous journey ever. The longest flight our fucking civilization ever put in the skies. Where are the goddamn cheering crowds? Yeah, sure, we put our heads on the block, riding these pieces of scrap iron through outer space. All the 2-bit morons will get a big charge out of watching us break our ass on some goddamn midnight television news show. Let loose the clowns.
So you can hear how,
You know what? That sounds like an anime that's been dubbed.
Well, yeah, okay, so this is the weird part about this movie, is it's in at least, the version I watched was in at least 2 languages. It was in English, because you could see them mouthing English words. Yeah. And then it shifts to German at points. And I guess that was intentional, because even though I don't know, it's odd. I don't know what to make of that. But like I said, there's multiple cuts of this. Yeah, people have complained about the dubbing. I don't care. I mean, I've heard much worse than this. It is Prochnow doing his voice work. You can hear it, so I know his voice. So he is doing at least most of his own dub work. The other guy, whatever. Like I said, a lot of people complained about it. I don't think it's nearly as bad. I mean, I've played far worse clips on this show. So maybe for some of these people, they're used to better dubbing. But yes, it's overdubbed, but that's also very common in foreign movies, like Italian movies. They never shot sound. So I don't think it's because they were mouthing what looked like English words to me. I was following the lip sync. It looked right. So I just think it's because they were shifting or they didn't shoot with sound. I don't know. But in any event, they get no response. They have no shuttle to dock with, nothing. So they decide, okay, we're going to pull a maneuver where we essentially just land the capsule in the water, which is very dangerous. But at this point, they have no other option. They're not hearing from anybody. They're not seeing anything. They're getting nothing on the radar. And they basically have a debate about, do we wait 20 hours till the oxygen almost runs out, or do we just go down now? And the commander says, look, we've tried everything and nobody's answering. I'd rather take our chances now. Why wait? Wait until we're barely breathing and then try it? And everybody agrees. So they do this maneuver. But right before they do, they're getting ready to seal the capsule. And the exobiologist, whose name is Don, I don't think that's his actual name, but that's what they keep calling him. He says, oh, let me go and get my science samples. And the commander's like, no, you know what? We have to seal this thing up and we have to go. He's like, all right, well, at least let me go and get the medical kit. He's like, fine, go get it and hurry up. So he goes into the other thing, the module, and you see him empty the medical container out and put his samples into it.
Oh.
By the way.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, foreshadowing. Also, there was plenty of room to keep some of the medical stuff in there and the containers, but whatever. I guess in a panic, you don't think about that stuff. So he shoves it in there, and of course, this is going to become a plot point later, that there will be some need for that medical thing, and they're going to figure out what he did. But anyway, they crash down in the water. It goes relatively fine. Nobody's seriously injured. They get bumped around a little bit, but they get out, and they look around, and they see just nothing, just rocks and sand as far as they can see. And they don't know where they are because, of course, this is 1977. There's no GPS. There's no cell towers. There's nothing like that. No, not even satellites, I guess, that they can get coordinates off, at least not with the stuff they've got on hand. And so they start wandering through the desert, and they don't have enough water. And there's a point where they're like, well, we can desalinate the water, using like a tent thing like they do on survival shows, and they very quickly figure out, no, you're not going to get enough for 5 guys from that. There's just not enough desalination. They don't have a big enough thing to make that much water. So the middle of the movie, and then there's these flashback sequences, and honestly, I didn't realize, this is what I mean about it's a clunky film in the way that it's made. I didn't realize they were flashbacks for a while. That the scientist
didn't give you enough of a heads up for the explanation.
No, because the first one is while the capsule's landing, and I honestly thought the hatch had opened and somebody fell out. I couldn't tell what the hell was happening because all you see is somebody falling, and I guess the clue was that the background was red, but that could also be a mental. There's a million reasons there could have been a red background. And you see the guy yelling, and then the capsule crashes down. And I thought, oh, he was afraid that he wouldn't survive the crash. I thought it was a fear thing. And then as the movie goes on, you keep seeing him having these flashbacks, these sequences. And so you're like, okay, he's remembering something, but what? Because you're just not clear on it for a while. And so they're going along, and they're getting increasingly dehydrated, and all they're seeing is rocks and desert, and we're getting these flashbacks of the guy seeing somebody falling.
Where did they land? Did they know where they were landing, or was it just kind of a
wild...
Well,
you'll eventually hear about it. There's a clip. They landed on the... Oh, man, it's a famous desert in Mexico with a V. I don't... They say it later. You'll hear it in the clip. I don't remember exactly. But they realize that they've landed on a desert. But this is also when they find a town that is completely deserted. But we'll get to that. So we see these flashbacks of this guy doing the training stuff, like he's in the vomit comet and he passes out. They put him on a cycle and he can't hack it. And the guy's like, you are not made to be an astronaut, man. A scientist, you might be great. But so that's what the evaluators are saying. But like I said, they let him go because he's such a great scientist, and they wanted to do this, whatever scientific things, which you don't find out until later, is looking for life. So they're going along, and they finally get to a point where they find a town. The town's deserted. So they're starting to panic because they're like, why aren't there any people? Why is there no one here? They just see a graveyard full of graves, all these empty schools. And that's when the commander finds a map and starts to figure out where they are. And this is him explaining where they are and his plan to get them out.
The next contestant is Steve Cunningham. The $10,000 question. Be seated. You can win. Yes, you can win a trip to Jupiter on Ganymede 2. There. And if you're really lucky, you can win a trip back. Where are we?
The west coast of Mexico.
That is not precise. The unfortunate contestant has only 5 points. The return trip to Earth, I'm sorry, you lost that.
You're about as funny as a crutch.
Here. Here, where hundreds upon hundreds of little children's filthy fingers have been, here. Of all the lousy places in this planet to land, we had to pick here. The Vizcaíno Desert.
So where are all the children with their filthy fingers?
We head east till we get to this road right here. Then we take the road all the way to San Diego.
San Diego. The USA.
100 miles or so. For the crew of the Ganymede, too, it's on foot. On foot, it's a bit longer. The road!
Mac, there'll be traffic. Son of a bitch, we made it, Mac. We made it. The road to San Diego.
Water! I found water! Water! I found water! He's telling the truth. I'll forgive him everything. Water! Come on, it's over here! Come on!
Now, I didn't edit that bad cut from one thing to another. That's just the movie. So there are some editing problems.
It sounds like an anime, man. Like the way they talk and it sounds like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a low-budget German TV movie. So, yes, it's overdubbed, not perhaps in what we might be used to on Hollywood standards, for sure. So, the guy says he found water, as you heard at the end of that clip. That's the scientist. And they go over and they find a well. And they bring a bucket up from the well, and it looks like water that had been in a toilet for 30 years that you would not want to touch. And the commander says, yeah, this doesn't smell right, but that's okay. We have purification tablets in the medical kit.
Oh, the medical kit. Yay.
Yeah, we're about to die from dehydration, so it's a good thing that we brought... You know what, Don? You were smart grabbing that medical kit. I almost stopped you, but Thank God you did, because now we got those desalinate or those whatever iodine tablets or whoever the hell knows. Why don't you get those out for us, buddy? And he's like, and starts to run. They tackle him and they open up the thing, and sure enough, they find the medical samples. And they say, really, you got rid of all of our medicine for these? Now, I thought they were going to break them right there. They don't. They make him drink the water, which is horrifying because you know what's in that or what could be in that. And he, of course, throws up. Yeah. And then they basically are like, all right, we're leaving. And they leave him behind because death sentence. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty brutal. But, I mean, I don't blame them. They're on the edge of death. So, and this guy has lied to him the whole time. And so after they leave.
So did he tell them that the medical kit was there the whole time?
Well, he said, I'm going back for the medical kit. He's been holding it the whole time.
Oh, so he told. Oh, I thought he said he was going back for his medical samples.
No,
he
said the
so
medical
he lied
kit.
from the start. Oh,
yes, because
man.
he said, I want to go get the samples, and they said no. And he said, well, at least let me get the medical kit. And they said yes. And that's when he dumped everything out
terrible.
And shoved them in there. Yes. So you understand why I'm surprised they didn't kill him right there.
No, I get it now. Yeah.
So they leave him and they go on, and then we see him have this long flashback sequence, which I will agree is way too long. Again, that's the biggest problem with this movie. And now we start to see sequences that line up with the images we saw earlier. So now it makes sense. And so they're on Jupiter. They're doing a mission, and the scientist, Don, says to the commander, I want to go check out this crater that we saw. There was liquid there. I'm pretty sure I saw liquid. And if there's liquid, there could be life. And the commander says, okay, when we finish what we're doing here, take 2 guys, go out there. You got 4 hours because it takes you 2 hours to get there and get back or whatever, your oxygen supply. That's all we allow. But go ahead and check. It won't impact the mission. Go ahead and do it. So the scientist takes 2 guys. They drive the rover out. They find this crater, and they see that there is, in fact, what looks like liquid there. And so the guy says, I want to get samples, but they realize that they're on the edge of a cliff. And so they don't know what they're going to do. And this is them deciding whether they're going to send somebody down or not because it's dangerous. So this is the discussion. It's important to listen to this because there's 3 guys. There's a scientist. There's a guy named Chooch, who is the one who's reluctant about doing it. And then I think Josh is the name of the guy who actually goes down. But importantly, because in a movie like this, what you would normally hear is the scientist was like pressuring them saying, oh, can you go down there? It's really important, whatever. Like that's the setup for something like this. Mm-hmm. And he was, importantly, the commander said, all right, if you're going to do this, you are responsible for the men as part of this. This is something you want to do, so I'm putting you in charge. So that's important to know before we play the clip, and then I'll talk about it after.
Yeah, there it is. What a picture. That's water? Almost impossible, I know. In liquid form. It's 74 below up here.
What is it then? It's boiling like a volcano.
It only looks like it. Probably methane and ammonia. How do we get down there?
We don't. Too far. Our rope ladders are too short.
No problem. I'll hook up the winch line and you can lower me down. Nice and easy.
Wait, Josh. We'd better tell Mac first. He might have other ideas.
I don't believe what I'm hearing.
You want to go down there?
Not particularly. I'm an exobiologist, not a mountain climber. If we find amino acids, nucleic acids, ATP, then the entire mission will have been worth it.
I don't know. 14 men are already dead.
Josh here. Hi, fellas. Hey, it's a cinch. Just hook me up to that tow line. I can go from ledge to ledge as you let me down.
No, I don't like it. I think we'd better call Mac.
Wait. Why do you want to call him?
He's the commander.
He made me responsible. Call him, he'll order us back. My plans don't fit his program.
It's not his program, it's the mission's program. We're not supposed to make it up as we go along.
We've been gone for 2 hours. We'll need 2 hours to get back. If we stand around here talking for 2 hours, that'll be the end of our oxygen supply. And Mac will never okay a second trip. I have no proof of whatever that is down there.
The line's long enough. I'm going down. In 10 minutes, we'll know for sure. Okay?
Okay.
So importantly, the guy Josh is not.
I understand now what you mean by the whole idea. There's things that could have been edited. It's almost like they wanted to make a really big technical film about it.
Yeah. I shortened that sequence quite a bit. Yeah, a lot of these I've cut gaps out. The thing is, though, that's important because there are little things that the movie does that are against what I expected. Because I thought, okay, nobody's going to want to go down and the scientist is going to make a big deal about it and basically pressure somebody into it or whatever. But the guy immediately says, I'll go down. So he's not pressured. Nobody makes him do it. He's like, I can do it. Let me go down there. So they start to lower him. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now I remember one of the flashbacks, a guy falling. And they're lowering him down on a winch. So I'm thinking, okay, I know what this is. The guy's having flashbacks of guilt since he's responsible because he got this guy killed. Makes sense. Kind of a classic movie story trope. So I'm like, okay, I know. And they take a long time showing this guy going down. And at multiple points, he says, the edges are really sharp. Make sure you don't lower me too fast so I can make sure I keep the line, clear. So I'm like, okay, he's going to get the line caught. It's going to start to fray. We're going to get close-ups of it, getting shredded. And then he's going to fall and he's going to die. But then I thought, but the guy grabbed samples. So somebody had to get the samples. So did somebody else go down? Or was he lying about having samples at all? Is this a delusional thing that he's cracked up with space madness? Because now I'm thinking in like 3 different directions.
Space madness.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm really kind of trying to figure out, I'm actually legitimately not sure where this movie is going at this point. Because again, the flashback sequences have been pretty clear. Somebody falls, and yet this guy has to have made it down, or somebody did to get the samples, and they make it, that guy says, I'm not going down there. I'm a scientist, man. I can't do rock climbing. And it doesn't appear that even if he wanted to, he'd be able to do it on his own. So I'm sitting there going, okay, what's going to happen? And this sequence of him getting lowered is very tense. It's cut like it's a suspense thing. And yet he makes it down without a problem. So I'm sitting here going, okay, this didn't need to be 7 minutes long. If he's going to make it alive, you do 1 or 2 tense moments and then let him land. So I'm starting to see where people are complaining about the length. But he makes it down, and then he starts to take samples, and he reports back what he's finding. Because then here I'm like, okay, wait. He's going to report back that there's nothing. So this is going to be the delusional thing, that the guy actually grabbed samples of nothing, but he's so obsessed with the idea of the science being a success that he's made it all up because he's already lied about what he did. So I'm thinking this guy's going to just be nuts. But here's what he finds in the water.
Josh, are you all right? Perfect. What's the ground like? Sand and pebbles mostly, but it'll hold me just fine. I'll start checking that liquid out now. Be careful you don't fall in. Ha. Okay. Color is green like chlorophyll. Temperature 27.3 degrees Celsius. That can't be right, Josh. That's what it reads, 27.3 degrees. Analysis. Water, methane, hydrogen, ammonia, carbon dioxide. Hey, Don, the biomolecule detector is activated.
You sure you're not mistaken, Josh?
Absolutely. I have a reading on 3.
That's fantastic. Chuck, now you can tell Mac and the boys what we found. Josh, how you coming with the bottles?
I'm filling them at various depths, pumping without a filter, labeling everything.
That's great, Josh. Fill the last bottle from the bank. It might have microorganisms in it.
Gotcha. Almost finished.
You better get ready for the ascent. Go ahead, Chug. What about the biodetector?
Still above 3. It is chlorophyll. There are protein molecules all over the place. Sure sign of organisms of some sort.
Josh, you're the greatest. Come on up, that's enough.
Found life, so there were samples.
I know.
That stuff's real.
I know. It's just it's so like dry and
overdone.
Yeah.
So now I'm sitting here going, okay, well, he's got the samples, so he's going to die on the way up. But how can that be?
I love it how you're just waiting to go, well, maybe he'll die now. Maybe he'll die now.
because the movie's showing us. So I'm sitting here going, the movie hasn't been inept in its story. I mean, it hasn't been that bad. It's just been clumsy. So somebody has to die. So then he says, all right, I'm going to send the samples up before I come up. And I'm like, okay, that's how the samples got there, because they send those up first on their own, and then they're going to bring him. So I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. That's how he got the samples, and the guy dies. Got it. So the guy comes up and he keeps making these comments. Oh, be careful. The edges of this are like glass. He says something, literally, the edges of these whatevers are like glass. So I'm sitting there going, got it. Okay, you've telegraphed it. Let's get to it because we have to get somewhere here. So he comes up and he says, wait, stop. And I'm like, aha, here it is. But no, the edge of the thing has cut his pressure line, so he's depressurizing. So he grabs the pipe or the thing and he stops it. And then the winch guy says, I'll go down and get him. You handle the winch to the scientist. So I'm sitting here going, okay. So one of them dies and the other one depressurizes. Again, now I'm trying to figure out what's happening. So the guy goes down and what happens is then the line cuts and the two of them fall. So we only saw one, but both of them fall and they don't die because they hit the rocks. They go into whatever the liquid is and drown instantly. So, okay, got it. That whole sequence was like 20 minutes. That whole sequence could have been 5.
Okay.
So now we cut back to the present and they get to the road. Then he catches up with them because they stop to rest. And then he suddenly shows up and they're like, wow, that's incredible. We thought you were going to die back there. But they've kind of softened a bit on him because we're like, well, we're all going to die anyway. So what's the point in holding a grudge? So they get to the road and they're all thrilled because they find the road. And then they realize that the road is full of sand and dirt and it is completely desolate. And so they're like, why is everything? And they find a plane, and the plane is basically like a bombed out plane. It's not bombed out, but it's just rusting and rotted out. And they're like, why is this like this? And now their skin's all dry and it's cracking and it's red. And so Jürgen Prochnow decides to, perhaps very stupidly, voice, because don't forget, still Cold War times, decides to voice a theory on why everything is looks the way it does and why their skin's all messed up.
When we get to the border, things will be a lot different. We'll see a lot of people.
Yeah, sure we will. Maybe. Why do you say that? What are you thinking? Everything's deserted. Towns, roads, people are all gone. So what are you getting at? Skin's burned. Look. Red blisters. Why?
'Cause of the sun, idiot. That's why. What else could it be?
Possibly.
What else could it be?
I don't know.
But you got an idea.
You can call it that. We were mostly in the shade, protected, during the day. But it's going to get worse.
Nothing but artificial light for 4 years.
We're moving north. We're getting closer to the border. And it'll get worse.
Fallout. Radioactivity, huh? Is that what you're thinking?
Why not? I don't know.
What do you think it is?
I can't prove it.
Yeah. Is there or isn't there radiation? Next to be getting us all hysterical. God, what a thought. But from where?
A burned out reactor somewhere. In San Diego. Or somewhere else in California. It's a crazy idea. We should be wearing our protective clothing. But of course, it would be too late for that. You mean we're wandering merrily across radioactive country? That's what you mean, isn't it?
So predictably, one of the other Americans says, you commie bastards, you must have nuked the country, you started a war, blah, 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 and kills him. Yeah, so basically beats him to death, at which point the commander takes a flare gun, shoots him in the chest with it, and then shoots him in the face with it to kill him because he killed the other guy.
Yeah.
So now we're down to the commander, the exobiologist, and one other guy. And they are at this point severely dehydrated. They haven't eaten. And so the next night we see that the commander and the scientist are kind of looking around for any signs of life. And they come back and they find the third guy eating the body of one of the two dead guys. At which point he basically, because they caught him, runs off into the night. and they fall asleep and they'll pass out more like. And then the next day they find him dead in the sand. And so it's just the two of them. And so they're wandering along, and the commander is basically dying and says, I hope you find somebody, go find them, dies. And now we're down to just the scientist. And we see him stumbling along. He's still got his medical samples. He stumbles along, and then he comes over the hill and sees something, at which point it then cuts to a press conference. And I'm going to let you listen to this because
God.
I wasn't really sure what I was supposed to be taking from this, because the movie, you heard in that opening when the commander lost his temper and was saying a thing about, they're happy to let us do all this stuff for them. There's all these little undercurrents of political commentary. So, and I thought of those Polish films I watched that were kind of metaphors. So when this press conference happened, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be taking of what the reporters are asking this guy. So I'm just going to play this.
Go ahead, Don, baby. We're with you, Donnie. Yeah, tell us the story. What's that? We can't hear you, Don. Where are the rest of the crew?
They're all dead. Died for scientific research. And the dream of journey to the stars.
Do you have a family? Do you have any children?
No. Life exists everywhere, apparently. It's part of a universal plan.
How did the rest of the crew die?
Hideously. Smashed to pieces, starvation, thirst, exhaustion. Burned up in the atmosphere of Jupiter. But life is nothing unusual.
What was the greatest moment of the mission?
The takeoff. We had the feeling we were doing something earth-shattering.
Will you be making more space flights?
My job is over. The biosamples from the crater lake are here.
And what were your roughest moments?
The first 10 months, the Earth keeps moving away from you. And then the swing by, behind Jupiter, all our systems went off. The magnetosphere was stronger than we anticipated.
There were no women aboard. Did you have any homosexual contacts?
No.
Why not?
No one was into that, really.
Well, then what did you do for sex?
We had pills. I'm thirsty.
I know. That's part of the test.
Yes.
Yes. Pull yourself together, Donald. It's only a test.
So at that point,
Is that how the movie ends?
No. That's what I thought. I thought because people had said, this is like a Twilight Zone episode. So I thought,
Is he having a delusion?
He basically passed out and had a hallucination that this press conference happened.
Yeah.
So then you see him wake up, and he's goes over the hill, and he sees a town full of people. He sees that they were just, however many yards away from finding a bunch of people in Mexico. And he sees it, and he just kind of has this 1,000-yard stare, and he opens the medical kit, and he just drops it, and then walks into the town, and then the credits roll. So it's an interesting story, and I see why people compare it to the Twilight Zone, because now he's just completely destroyed.
How long was it?
Doesn't care. Hour and 49 minutes.
Yeah, that could probably be like 30 minutes.
80 minutes. No, you could do an 80-minute movie, because if you do, like I said, the opening 30, you could leave a lot of that in. You could do the flashback in the Jupiter sequence, because we don't see any of the other people die. They could show some of that to show his mental state deteriorating, more of the stuff on Jupiter, but clearly they didn't have the budget for it. So they probably wanted to and couldn't. This movie could be remade. It could be a short, like you said, or it could be a feature. This movie could be remade and it could be really good. You'd have to still set it in the 70s because obviously GPS, cellular, all that stuff destroys most of this. But if it was set in the same period, you can see the structure of an interesting movie, because that press conference, when they're asking about, did you have homosexual sex? I'm thinking, oh, this is going into satire. They're just going into black comedy with this now, that they don't care about these, that they're just, media objects. But no, it's just that he is completely mentally annihilated because he never really should have been on this mission to begin with. And that makes it interesting. It's just not properly constructed. But you can see the movie that it could be in there. So if somebody were to remake this, they could really keep it the same and just shorten it here a lot in different places, expand a little bit of the Jupiter mission to show the struggles that they were having and how the other crews died, and like the fact that maybe there were 2 other scientists like him and they died, and so he feels like it's all on him. The weight is on him to get this information back. You know what I mean? There's ways to build up what's happening to him instead of the kind of shortcut way they did this, because honestly, I think they just didn't have the budgetary means to do those sequences properly, so they just skipped over a lot of it. So I'm not going to say it's a bad movie because it kept me interested. There were interesting segments.
It just went on too long.
Yeah, the dubbing. Yeah, it just went on too long, and it just wasn't well made for the story they were telling. That's my real problem with it. And so for most people, now there is a shorter cut. I didn't watch it. I don't know what exactly they edited, so maybe that's going to be better. I watched this on YouTube because it's not streaming anywhere. It's kind of like a forgotten movie. And I didn't even know the multiple cuts existed till after I watched it, so I might have looked for other cuts.
Yeah.
The dubbing didn't bother me. A lot of people go up the wall about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's great, but that's not going to sink a movie for me. I've put up with bad dubs. It's fine. So it's an interesting specimen of a type of story. A very specific type of, especially because it's foreign. It's a German TV film. So I think that's where some of the elements were interesting to me, because like that press conference with the American music, and they're just kind of ignoring the fact that they're looking at a shattered human being and just asking him stupid questions.
Yeah.
That all feels very specific.
It's also the way he perceives it too.
Yes. And that's the things that I think make it worth watching, but try to find a shorter cut, I guess. I'm not going to watch it again to compare. This is a one and done for me, but I think there was enough there that if somebody were to say they were remaking it, I would be interested to see what they did with it. I think there's potential in the story. This is just not the best version of it. So I wouldn't say, again, it's not a bad movie. I just can't call it a well-made movie. So up to people whether they want to watch it or not. It's interesting. I'm not sorry I watched it. It's absolutely too long, but I don't think it is. I didn't feel like I shouldn't have watched it. I didn't feel like I wasted my time. I just kind of wish I'd seen a better version of it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's kind of my idea of it. I think the problem with me is I just wish, like, just hearing the story of it, I wish, oddly, there's too much of it, and yet you want more of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you want more of the story.
No, I agree. No,
why were they not contacted? What's going on Earth? Like, I want to know more.
Well, and that's where what I'm saying is they edited it incorrectly. They could have cut down that Jupiter, let's send him down, bring him back. That could have been 5 minutes and done, including the deaths, top to bottom. Instead, it's like 20. And give me more of what happened instead of that long opening, which is 30 minutes of them getting ready to land. Okay, cut that to 15, and then give me 15 of what happened to the other 2 spaceships. And layer in why this scientist, who was never cut out to do this, was further broken down by the fact that he probably wasn't psychologically, forget the physical part, that he wasn't psychologically ready either. And when these other 2, that's how I would do it, 3 scientists, 1 for each ship. When the other 2 died, somebody says to him, well, Don, I guess you're responsible for all the science now, not thinking about what that actually means to say it to him, and that he's like having a problem with it and falling apart. You could make a really interesting movie out of that. And then, of course, by the end, when he's realized that, because he says that line, it's kind of buried in the press conference where he says, my life isn't anything unusual. There's life everywhere. What we do here is meaningless. Like, he's saying stuff like that, and it's all getting lost. And because the audio's not great there either. And so there's ways to make this interesting. this movie just doesn't take full advantage of them. But I don't think it's bad.
It's a good idea. It needed a better writer and a better director and more money.
And a better editor, probably, too.
Yeah, there's that.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying if somebody were to say, yeah, we're going to remake this, perfect movie to remake. Perfect. Because it's not done well the first time. So let somebody else take a second shot at it. As opposed to doing The Crow and making a shitty version of it, which is exactly what they're going to fucking do. So instead of doing that piece of shit, which is what it's going to be, sorry, everybody, that movie's going to suck. I don't care what they do. It's going to suck. Instead of doing that, take movies like this. Movies that were imperfect when they were first tried. And make a better version. Something original, at least to modern audiences. Instead of doing Eric Draven again and making him look like Leto's Joker. Because that's stupid. So, some movies should be remade and some shouldn't be. And on that wonderful note, I will say, whatever you do with your weekend, enjoy it, whether it's watching this or something else. Go watch Fallout. That's great. Better than that new Crows movie is going to be, I guarantee it. But Operation Ganymede, an interesting curiosity for those who are interested in these types of things. Not a terrible movie, just not as well made as it could be. But some may enjoy it far better than I did. I didn't have a bad time with it. So go find it on YouTube. It is free. And whatever you do with your weekend, enjoy it. And we will talk to you again in a week. Take care. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.